Three, two, one.
今夜もミュージック君へのラッキー笑い合って抱き合って幸せにほらなれるように
Hello, welcome to another episode of EWB AKA Elitist Weeb bashing. This time, I am not joined by the dwarf, I am joined instead by the rat. Hello, rat.
It's me, everyone's favorite rat.
Can I get a
Remy
squeak
from
squeak in the
Ratatouille.
comments? Whoa. So, Vindy's here because we're talking about a very special video.
Shouldn't be here, but I'm here.
Well, you're here. Well, I don't think any of us should be here because
No.
it's well.
Toxic Weeb Club series. We're all toxic. That's what this series is about.
Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna try. So the goal for this series, we got a lot of good reception on the last episode.
Yeah, it's insane how much people liked it, and it's funny that like the by far like the first thing on the Weeb Club. I think I made a joke about it because it made me laugh, but like. The most popular thing on the Weeb Club channel, like the first thing to pass 1,000 views, I'm not in.
We'll
which
see.
is funny.
Because
But
I feel somebody pointed out that like it's good because AnyTube doesn't have anybody like actively like but like correctly criticizing people. So
Right.
maybe this will be interesting because we're gonna try our best to be calm and collected and constructive instead of reductive.
Right.
But it's gonna be hard because the video we're talking about today is
it's I think it's I'm just gonna say this right now, and I'll get into it the more we talk about it. I actually think this video is made with really, really dishonest intentions. I can't prove that, obviously. I'm not gonna sit here and say that this guy had he planned everything to be like this. But there's a part in the video, I think, where it turns and it becomes about something much different than what it starts as in, like, a really, really disingenuous way. As opposed to just the actual points being made in the first half not being good at all.
So, for anybody who's not aware, the video we're going to be talking about is called Where is the Passion by a YouTuber named Kross. Now, I don't know who this is. I've never seen them. Apparently, he made videos about Steven Universe and Voltron. So... but then I went and saw who they follow and who they really like. I noticed he really likes Digibro. Right. And I'm not saying that he because there's a lot of there's already this idea going around on YouTube that there's a lot of copycat X's of certain YouTubers, and it's usually either a copycat Giguk, a copycat Demo, or a copycat Digi.
Right.
This guy, when we watch this video, if you've ever seen a video called We've Accepted Mediocrity by Digibro, you're going to notice a lot of the same points, but instead of Digibro's... Well, if you watch We've Accepted Mediocrity, Digibro's video is essentially just him saying that like he feels that we as an audience have just accepted that accepted that everything in anime is mediocre. The video hasn't aged well, and if you see like AnyTube Digest, Shaves kind of goes in on like a lot of the issues, and you notice that a lot of the things said in that video kind of run over into this one, but this one honestly feels a little more insidious because Digi's was like a stream of thoughts. It was like just his like feelings that he was feeling at the time. This guy, well, I was gonna say really quickly, just to talk about the Digi video. I remember when that video came out, and like as someone who says that I still think Digi can make good content, I've seen videos from him even recently that I like. I don't like that video. I think that it definitely has some issues with it. But even then, yeah, it was still more of a stream of thought. And at least with Digi, it's someone where Digi doesn't make a lot of the baseline I would say pure mistakes in terms of knowledge. That we'll see in this video about like how anime is made and things going into anime. Because Digi's came from like a very much stance of like I've been through this for years and this is what I've seen.
Right. And so that's something that I think people kind of forget about when it comes to Digi compared to other content creators. Like Digi's been watching anime for a long time. He's been in this community for a long time, and he actually knows what he's talking about. I think a majority of the time. And I think this video, I cannot say that's the case. With that being said, we should probably get into it so that we can...
The very first point is evident of that. So let's start it.
So, I'm watching episode 11 of Keep Your Hands Off Eizouken, right? And at the end of the episode, I watched the ED instead of clicking off of it like I always do, because somehow it took me that long to realize this song is a fucking banger. And at the end of it, I'm shown this, like, fucking incredible wallpaper-style end card thing, and I think to myself, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen in my fucking life. And then I paused and realized that this amazing art piece kinda looks like it's in reference to the stuff that happened in the episode, and out of curiosity, I checked the very end of some other episode only to find that it also has an entirely different and just as amazing wallpaper type end card. And then I look around some more only to realize that yes, every episode in this show has an amazing, unique art piece at the end of the ED, and I just sat there at my desk and thought about how Eizouken has more genuine care put into it than like every other anime this season combined.
I wanted to start off by saying, first of all, he talks about skipping the ED. And so I'm not going to sit here and say that, like, he skips the ED for every show. But I think the fact that he says that he skipped the ED before he realized... Like, he had skipped the ED and it was episode 11 was the first time he heard the song. I think shows that he generally is someone who skips EDs. And so it would explain why he thinks that Eizouken's the only anime that has end cards when it's a very, very common thing.
Vindy.
Yeah. Right. So what you just DM'd me is the subreddit for the end cards
of all of anime.
Right.
And unsurprisingly to anyone, there's a lot.
And you can see even shows that we've talked about on the Weeb Club that we don't like. Majia Records on here, you know. Course Your Asteroids on here. Nekopara's on
Shokugeki
here.
no Soma Shin no Sada is on there.
Right. Eizouken is on here. You know, there's a lot of end cards in anime. It's a very, very common thing in the industry. But I think that, like, even just the premise for the start of this video is inherently flawed, because if you're someone who skips EDs, you won't see most of these end cards, which would explain why, like you think that Eizouken is special for having these.
Well, so... There's a very important thing that people don't realize when it comes to making YouTube videos, because I've heard a lot of I've talked to a lot of people, and a lot of people when you mention this to them is that I believe that if you are making analytical videos, you are coming from a lens of like a stance of authority, meaning that what you are saying is like something that like is like knowledgeable to people who know less.
And I think, just to say, I think you have to come from that.
Yeah.
I don't think you can make analytical content and, like, talk about these series and what they're doing and why you think parts of them are good or parts of them are bad if you're not going to look at it through this very authoritative kind of, you know, I know what I'm talking about lens. Because, like, if you're going to make a video and just say you don't know what you're talking about, what's the point of making the video to begin with?
Well, in terms of logic and making an argument, one of the major components, even amongst anything, is logos, which is like the logical, and like you're coming from, you have to have an authority, like some kind of authority to be speaking on the matter. Like for example, I can't make a video about like astrophysics because I'm not an astrophysicist.
Right.
But like, you know. So, for example, there's a lot of like knocks to this man's like credibility from 1 minute into the video. He pronounces the show Eizouken like Eizouken. Mm-hmm. If you look at Japanese pronunciation, even if you say like Eizouken, you're still closer because you're still like sticking to ei as like I, but he's saying Eizouken like ei. There's no language on earth will pronounce that with E. Then there's the Zou, Z-O-U. He says zoo. There's no language in the world that like has Z-O-U as zoo. Right. So already, just from the pronunciation, he's like knocking his credibility. But on top of that, he also said that he skipped, it took him 11 episodes to realize the ED was good, which again...
And the fact that he's talking about the song means that he skipped the ED for 10 episodes before that.
And then on top of that, only just realized the end card thing. And I'm reading his pinned comment just so I'm gonna have his pinned comment on the screen for a lot during this video because it like puts a lot of things on here because he sort of like says that the end card part, this end card point is supposed to be like a targeting point or something, like to target the discussion, when really what it's doing is just destroying his credibility in 3 quick strikes.
Right. Well, I think because you were talking about that, and I wanted to get into this point a little bit more. Here's a picture you can put up. I'm not gonna tell you have to, but here's a picture that shows it. So there's ethos, pathos, and logos, right? And so ethos is like your credibility, logos is your logic, and then pathos is your emotions.
Yeah.
And this is like literally philosophy 101. Like any philosophy class you take will have you go through this. But I think when it comes to a YouTuber, logos and pathos are things that you show in just like your specific video, and ethos is something that's built up throughout an entire like channel, right? Like Digibro, we mentioned, has a lot of credibility because throughout the course of his channel he's shown how long he's been in the anime community and how much knowledge he has and how much he's seen and how much he knows. And so it takes a lot of time to build your credibility, but your credibility can be destroyed very quickly. And so you have to be really careful when you're talking about stuff, especially in a scripted video where you can go back and change what you're talking about and make it how you want, that you don't say things that just show that you're either new or you like fall into these trappings that cause you to not know what you're really talking about compared to other things.
Yeah, like it's a good thing for example, it's a good thing this isn't scripted, because I totally forgot that for a moment that Ethos was the authority part of it, because I'm like running on like 5 hours of sleep and I'm losing my mind. But yeah, so like that's a very poor way to start this video. It's not even the problem of this point, because this point already paints him in a bad light, and it kind of, instead of like making this out to just be his opinion, it kind of descends into him like digging his heels in and kind of just
like we start already, like the problem is this first minute is him building the premise that he's going to build his argument off of, and his premise is already flawed, because if we go, he says, that the end cards, even just to really quickly kind of nitpick for a second, he says these end cards show that Eizouken has more passion than 99% of the other anime coming out this season. If we go to the end cards subreddit, right? Isekai Quartet came out last season, has end cards. Majia Record Maho Shoujo Madoka Magica came out last season, has end cards. Koisuru Asteroid came out last season, has end cards. There were anime coming out last season besides just Eizouken that had these end cards, and when you try to paint it in this light of, well, these end cards I noticed, and that shows this passion where all these anime coming out last season don't, that's not entirely true, because a bunch of anime coming out last season had these end cards. You just either weren't watching them or skipped the EDs and didn't see these. It's
also sort of inherently flawed, because later on in this video he'll like start to mention this point about like appealing to a wider audience means there's less passion or something along those lines. But if you look in the r/endcard subreddit, we have Nekopara, we have Magi Record, which is a gacha adaptation of a gacha game. We have, of course, Shokugeki no Soma Shin no Sada, which is again one of the most popular series that came out of like Shonen Jump, and especially like out of the adaptations in the West. Like he's already like in succession slowly knocked down his credibility in just 1 minute.
And I think something that should be stated for a lot of these, and I think this is something that goes across a lot of AniTube, is that the danger that you fall into a lot of times is when you talk and, maybe you say things wrong, people who aren't going to be as storied or, like, been around the community for as long aren't going to know this stuff. And that it's only when you really start to get into anime that, like, you're going to realize that, like, oh, yeah, what he's talking about just doesn't make sense and isn't true at all.
Like, this is probably just nitpicking, but as you'll see, he kind of builds, like as Vindy has said, he builds his entire premise around it, and it kind of just descends. The hole keeps getting dug deeper. So let's continue.
Right.
Since this show started, I've been telling all my friends that could be described as art kids to watch it, but I just wish that at the time of telling them, I could have emphasized how much passion this show is just exploding with. And I think about how clear it is that the creative team behind this show just cares so goddamn much about what they're making. I mean, those panels come literally at the end of the ED, and most viewers don't even watch the ED. The number of people who are going to see these images are vastly outnumbered by by the number of people who won't, but the creative team behind this show decided to put it in anyway because they just obviously love what they're working on.
So he said something there that also shows like a fundamental misunderstanding of anime and is looking at it from... Actually, I don't know if you agree. I think it's looking at it from a very Western point of view.
No, it's 100% a Western point of view. It's equivalent to Giguk saying that Gundam isn't as popular, despite the fact that it's one of the the most sold in terms of merchandising, and like everybody knows Gundam. There's the Gundam statue, right? Or the people who say that Kamen Rider is not popular, despite the fact that it's the #1 toy selling thing in Japan.
You would be right if you said that, oh yeah, most of the Western audience isn't going to look at these end cards. But that's missing that, first of all, most anime is made for the Japanese audience, and that most of the Japanese audience watching this are going to be watching it on TV. Or, if they're not watching on TV, they'll be watching the Blu-rays, where it goes straight from the end of an episode into the next. So I think saying that 99% of people aren't going to be watching till the end is wrong, especially when a lot of times it's like, okay, they're watching in this late night TV anime block, there's this show, and they're watching this and the show after it. Of course they're going to be watching through the ED and watching the end card. It's just completely missing the fact that, you know, we call them TV anime, but the reason is because they air on television.
It's interesting that his argument says that because again, we're talking about, there's a subreddit dedicated to just this, but it was really easy to find. It took me like a second to find end cards, and it's just if you're a fan of anime, like, it takes you maybe like five shows deep into your watch throughs to realize that shows have end cards, because that just kind of comes with the territory. So what bothers me is that he's already laid out this logic, and he mentions that in his comment that he worded things improperly, which should have been solved in the scripting stage if that was the case, because this isn't an uncommon issue he has. I checked his other videos, and his pinned comment always mentions that he worded things poorly, which you're already confusing people. You're already painting yourself out to be less knowledgeable than you are. Why wouldn't you fix that in the scripting stage?
Well, yeah, and I mean, I understand the idea of, okay, well, I didn't realize that it was going to be, you know, it's hard to know how people are going to take certain phrases, because, you know, you can't, like, when you write something, a lot of the times you kind of assume, you know, people are going to see this the way I see it. But that's why you should always check, if you're doing scripted content, you should check your scripts with friends and people you trust to read it and kind of tell you what they think, because, you know, and this is something both you and Crafts and None, like everyone I know who does scripted analytical videos on anime, constantly has other people look over their scripts, because you don't want to just word something wrong and release a video with a poorly worded script. You want to go over it and make sure that what you're saying is correct. And I mean, I don't even do scripted videos, and I'm not going to say that my videos are great, you know, I don't think that, but even I will a lot of times phrase a point 3 or 4 different ways, and then specifically pick the way I think has the best phrasing, because I don't want to just put something out that has bad wording, can be easily misconstrued as something else.
But it's very clear that, like, even if you watch this, even without the wording misunderstanding, he's connecting the idea of passion in a show being that, like, they took the time out, like, they took the time to make these end cards and put them in the show, when, like, and then said that, like, they enjoyed it so much, enjoyed working on the show so much that they put an end card, and this is evident of it, which is a very strange way to say that, because it's implying that every other show that does not have an end card means that everybody on the staff disliked working on it. So I'm gonna pull the Love Live card, because that's all I'm capable of doing anymore. But if you just listen to interviews from, like, the Seiyu, like, you know, of Aqua or from Muse, when they talk about it, like Suzuki Aina or Anya, she was talking about when episode 9 of Love Live Sunshine aired, and, like, the emotional moment happened with her character that they're so attached to. She was, like, crying so much she almost, like, choked on her tears, right? Because she cared about it that much. The people who work on these shows care about it enough to where they put this effort in, right? There's another perfect example is, you know, My Hero Academia. There's, like, it's a 1-to-1 adaptation because of, like, there's always going to be flaws when you adapt things, because you're always going to face the conflict of, if it's not as close to the manga as it is, then people are going to cry. But if it's too like the same thing, then the people are going to question whether or not it's just right the manga. So you're always in that weird middle ground where you can't leave. But like there's a lot of like scenes where the animators just, you can tell they're putting like so much of their passion into it, like the fight with Deku versus Overhaul, or even just the way the Hero 2 scene is played out. There's a lot of these moments, and if you look throughout different productions, you'll see that.
I think really quickly, just to touch on the passion point before the video goes any farther, I want to make the point that, like, yes, it's true that, you know, maybe like I wasn't on the massive staff for Eizouken, so I can't sit here and say, oh, they did or didn't have passion. But I think that there's a difference, and it's funny that you're making a video with Eizouken as the focus and you don't bring this up, that there's a difference between just passion for specifically the Eizouken show or adapting the Eizouken manga,
or for your craft,
and passion for animation as a whole. Because a lot of what the passion in Eizouken is about, and he even mentions that mentioned it to all my art friends to watch the show, is this idea of passion for what you're doing. And he even kind of makes this point later, and I'll get into it more then, but like, people that are making anime are passionate about making anime more than anything, more than they're going to be passionate about specifically certain stories. So to kind of insinuate that, oh, well, the people making certain anime don't have passion like the people making Eizouken do, is like, no, they definitely have passion. That's the reason that they're able to be as good as they are. And you can't say that, oh, well, yeah, this has Sakuga, but there's no passion in the show, because the passion is in the Sakuga.
Like, it takes passion to be so good at your craft that if you even watch this show, it's like, it shows you that making Sakuga requires you to have the passion to push through that hard process of just doing every single frame and making it as fluidly as you can. Right. Like, it tells you this part in the show, which is just interesting, because in my video that I'm putting out, I talk about the idea that, like, part of this show's message that people always miss is that, like, it's not just passion for your craft. It's what are you going to do in order to get that craft to be seen around the world, is that a lot of people will skip out on. And this man only really, like, focuses on that passion aspect because it's what he's taking out of it. So that becomes a theme, because a lot of the things he's saying are entirely just from his limited understanding of the medium, to where he's, again, saying that, like, you know, this has more passion than 99% of anime productions out there. Or, as you'll see, he starts placing the story the like story aspect of the shows onto the animators and the directors, when we'll get to it.
Right. Yeah. We'll definitely get to that, because I have a lot I want to say about that. But
And it just makes me think of how rare an occasion like this is for most anime right now. Like when I watched episode 1 of Demon Slayer and I saw how this kid that I had just met and did not care about at all was talking with his family, who I also gave zero shits for, about how much they all love each other and about how much they're gonna miss each other when this kid goes on some like basic ass errand to get them coal or something. I could not even process how disengaged I was. I was reaching ironically fascinating levels of boredom from just watching these characters sit around and talk to each other, and I flashed back to my experience with Eizouken and realized that like half of this show is made up of characters standing around and talking, and yet I found every second of it entertaining.
Let me go back to the entertain. Okay, so here's the first thing. He complains a lot about how, I didn't care about the early parts of Kimetsu no Yaiba because he's saying that he doesn't care about a show in the first 10 minutes. And he doesn't care about, he's complaining that he doesn't care. I generally don't like the I don't care argument, because a lot of times it's made in a sense where, okay, you're saying you already don't care before you're really supposed to care. And we'll get into this more in a minute, but I just really had to stop it there, because there were two big things that I just can't stand in terms of anime discourse that I think are really, really negative when people bring them up. And the first one definitely comes down to the, he's complaining, I don't care about Tanjiro or his family. And it's like, okay, but you're in the first he even says later, he's in the first 8 minutes of the first episode and complaining that he doesn't care. Like, you didn't give yourself a chance to care, right?
Because this is another point of he's continually knocking down the credibility that he has. It's interesting because when you listen to what he said here, he was talking about he didn't care about what this character's saying based off of the first 8 minutes, and he said he flashed back to his things in Eizouken, which it's like the clip that he used was like from the middle of the season,
right?
And he's also said it's more passionate than anything I've seen in anime. I forgot if he said this season or recently, but like even if he did say that, within the last couple couple years, we've had Violet Evergarden, we've had Sorayori Motoi Basho, we've had Yuru Camp, we've had so many shows that they're praised really well and have Little Witch Academia, like there's it's just insane. Or even Promare, right? It's like
Thurgatsu no Lion, just to name another one.
There's so many that you can name off the top of your head that it's very strange, that it's just highlighting even more that he doesn't watch a lot of anime, yet he's making these proclamations about the entirety of the medium.
Right, or at the very least is newer. And I'm not going to say that people who are new can't give their thoughts on anime, because I don't think that's true. However, I think if you're newer to anime as a medium, right, and this is something a lot of people don't seem to understand, if you want to give your thoughts on a specific show, that's fine, right? Like, if this video was an analysis of Eizouken, or it was a review of Eizouken, that's fine, right? Because, at that point, you're talking about just the show. But if you're going to make these larger sweeping and he even mentions this in the comments, right? He says, a comment that says, the point of view of this video was never supposed to be an analysis of Eizouken. It was an observation of the anime landscape at large. And I feel like if you're going to get to the point where you want to make these observations of the anime landscape at large, you have to know about it. You have to know a lot about it. You have to have time put in. Like, I don't even mean just time in terms of you've seen a lot of anime or researched a lot. There needs to be time that you've spent being an anime fan. Like, years you've spent watching anime and being a part of the community and the culture and paying attention to things. Because you can't just come in and I'm not going to say that he's a newer fan, but that's what it seems like, especially when you had mentioned earlier that, he has videos on Steven Universe and I don't remember what the other show you said.
Steven Universe, Avatar: The Last Airbender, Voltron Legendary Defender.
Okay,
yeah.
Right. So that makes me think that he's coming from a, background of Western animation. I wasn't going to say normie, but I would say he's coming from a background of Western animation, now talking about anime. Well, he doesn't completely understand the differences between the two and what happens in anime production. And so it is annoying to see some of that come through, because he's talking, again, from this, authoritative position, while a lot of what he's saying doesn't stack up.
So sometimes even, factually incorrect, which is, the biggest problem, right, is that there's a lot of people like Nino, or there was a lot of people talking about there needs to be more gatekeeping. But again, I'm not saying that in terms of for anime fans. You can be an anime fan and not watch a bajillion shows. But if you're going to be an authority figure, which is what a YouTuber who makes analysis videos and makes claims about the entirety of the medium is, you need to be gatekept. You need to pass the qualifications to be able to say these things. Like I, for example, can talk about Love Live all I want because it's basically consumed my life. Vindy can talk about Shonen Jump all he wants because he's read all of it. He's read all of the things they're currently publishing right now, including is going back and reading all the things beforehand. He can talk about it as much as he wants and about the state of the Shonen Jump, right?
Right.
You will never see me.
Manga. I'd say even just manga, because the manga say you have to, you don't have to watch every anime ever made, or even all of the classics, right? I don't think there's a list of you have to watch these 50 anime. But I think what it comes down to is you have to be a part of the community for a long time. You have to watch a lot of different things. I think is a big thing, right? You can't just watch every Gundam series and be like, well, I've seen 100 days of anime. Now I'm an authoritative figure on anime. It's you have to dip your toes into a lot of different things, especially if you're talking about anime at large.
I cannot talk about horror anime because I haven't watched a lot. you're never going to see
Right.
me talk about horror anime because I'm already gatekeeping myself to make sure that I don't say anything wrong or make any assumptions
Right.
on the genre. So, like, already because here's the thing about Digibro when he made that video, We Have Accepted Mediocrity, is that he was saying these things and it was coming off of his own experiences, but everything he was saying came from a place of knowledge and learning.
Digibro has seen and continues to watch 99, like Digibro watches 10 times, 100 times more anime than most AniTubers do, and has seen like 1,000 times more anime than most AniTubers have. So he comes from this place where he is someone who knows what he's talking about, and even if you don't agree with him on an opinion level, you can't deny that he understands the medium and isn't just speaking out of his ass a lot of the time.
There are times where, because of his preferences and because of how jaded he is from watching all these shows, that he sort of says a lot of things that are also wrong, but it's not as if but more often than not, when he says something regarding the entirety of the medium, it has more weights than, say, for example, other people would who've watched like 5 shows.
Right.
Which, again, we're not. All we're saying is that we're seeing this and we're hearing the points and we're realizing slowly as the video goes on that this man does not know what he's talking about.
Right. It's not that he's not allowed to have his opinion on Eizouken, or he's not allowed to have his opinion on Kimetsu. Well, Kimetsu is a different topic that I'll explain in a little bit, but it's not that he's not allowed to have his glowing review of Eizouken if he wants, because at the end of the day, he's seen Eizouken, so he has the experience of seeing it, right? But if you're going to, as he puts it, make statements about the anime industry at large, you have to have an informed opinion and not just an opinion, right? I can say whatever I want about, fucking astrophysics, but if I am not an astrophysicist, what I say doesn't mean as much as someone talking about the anime industry at large.
There's a reason why Katy Perry gets made fun of for that quote is math related to science, right? So,
right.
Oh boy, we're only 2.5 minutes into this.
I know.
Because in that show, the dialogue actually makes sense and means something. The people making Eizouken actually cared enough about the world they were constructing to give all of these characters dialogue that constantly fell in line with their established character, instead of just using the dialogue as a completely transparent vector for moving the plot along. They cared enough about showing the audience a story that they would connect with, that when constructing these characters they thought, what is this person's story? What makes them who they are, and how would they react when put in this situation? And this is clearly apparent from the first moments these characters appear on screen. What's this guy's story? What makes him who he is? How would he react when put into whatever situation? Well, he loves his family, and he's pretty much the nicest human being to ever walk the planet, so I guess when his family is murdered, he is traumatized? Wouldn't anyone be traumatized in this situation? How does this have any connection to any of his other personality traits? I mean, he really doesn't have any other personality traits, but still. Is the show trying to make me feel bad for seeing the worst thing ever happen to the nicest guy ever? Because I've seen hundreds of other shonen type protagonists like this, and I've only known this guy for 10 minutes. It's just so apparent that the creators are not at all interested in giving the main character any semblance of a unique and depthful personality, whereas all 3 of the main characters in Eizouken literally feel like people I know in real life.
Go ahead, go off.
So the biggest problem, well, no, there's like 5 problems, like major problems I have with things he said there. The first one is that this is something that he uses a lot in this video, and this is something you see a lot, and it just comes, I think, from not paying attention is really the best way I can explain it. But like, so if you want to talk about passion that the animators and the anime community, or the people making the anime, not the anime community, I'm sorry, but if you want to talk about the passion the animators and the anime staff have for making an anime, what you should be looking at is not the writing. Because a lot of times, and this is, you kind of touched on it actually in the MHA EWB, but when I say a panel for panel adaptation, what I mean is that you can tell that they are looking at the manga and using that almost as a storyboard, where yes, you have to adapt things, you have to change things, but they're using like the manga as a script. And so, I haven't read the Eizouken manga, and I haven't seen the Kimetsu anime, so I can't say much for either of those. But I would be willing to take a very good bet that 90% of the lines in Eizouken that you're crediting is showing these characters' depths. And probably a little bit higher, probably 95% of the vocal lines or more you see in Kimetsu that you're saying is showing Tanjiro or boring don't come from the anime staff. It comes from the mangaka who made the original manga that is being adapted. You cannot credit basic story beats and basic character writing to an anime staff because it starts at the manga, and most things, especially dialogue, are taken from the manga because if you're going to adapt what a mangaka is doing, you are going to try to adapt their themes, and a lot of times they write their themes super well inside the dialogue of the series, and you have to just adapt that.
So this comes from like a place because it's very clear that his experience is with Western media entirely, because in terms of Western media and the way they adapt things is that even if you're adapting, say, Harry Potter, the Harry Potter films are very different beasts from the books that they're adapted from if you read them versus watching them, because there's ways that they flow, there's ways that like J.K. Rowling's like words, there's entire things changed in the movies, like in the original Goblet of Fire, it's Mad-Eye Moody who gives Harry the gillyweed instead of Neville. Like there's they cut out the entirety of the slavery like sub story.
Yeah, and Hermione having the like this is just off the top of my head. I'm like 90% sure this is right. Someone can fact check me in the comments, but Order of the Phoenix is an 820-page book that is adapted into probably a 2.5-hour movie at most, right? Probably a 2-hour movie. I'm 90% sure it's actually a full 820 pages, but you know, when you do that, you have to change a lot, right? You have to write, like, the people who wrote the script for the Harry Potter books didn't directly take lines from the book and put it in, right?
They changed it for the flow of like dialogue and for the flow of conversation.
They had to completely write a script using this as a baseline. When you're adapting a manga, and there are some fucking adaptations where you can tell they are using the manga as a storyboard, you know? And so they have to put the lines from the manga in. And like a lot of times it is directly word for word, you know, in Japanese, what's in the manga is what the voice actors are reading. And or very, very slight changes.
It's not even like because they're doing it to be lazy, which is I'm assuming is what people will assume from us saying that. That's not the case. If you watch like shows like Kamen Rider Drive, there's an episode where an entire subplot is that like an entire plot of the episode is that one of the monsters is really upset that the adaptation of his favorite manga is going to be adapted with like some girl voicing his character that in the original manga was silent, because Japanese otaku are very particular about the way things are adapted. If you do anything that deviates from what they experienced in the manga, they will riot. There will be people like losing their minds. So like it's not as if they're doing this to be lazy. It's because if they do it this way, they will be crucified.
Yeah, well, I also want to say, I don't say panel for panel adaptations is an inherently negative thing. There is value in turning a manga into an anime, and like there are good things that come from that. And I think that, you know, a lot of times, like, yeah, you have to take what's in the manga, but a lot of times that's what they want to do, because if if they had the time when they were turning the Harry Potter books into movies to put everything from the books in, they would have.
They cut out Hermione's entire like thing about where she was like a civil rights fighter, right?
And that's a lot of those cuts are made for time. But when you're making an anime, a lot of times you don't have to make those time constraint cuts. You can adapt in a way where, you know, a lot of times they have to put things in to make it go longer. So it's the opposite issue you have with Harry Potter or, you know, Game of Thrones even. You instead are trying to fill out the runtime. So you're putting, at the very least, what the manga has. And I don't think that that's like an inherently bad thing. I think you have to do that. It's an important thing, because a lot of times anime adaptations are made as like supplements or as another version of the manga that's telling the same story in a lot of the same ways.
This point that he's making is entirely from a place of ignorance, because from the very moment he assumes that the production team was the one behind the story, he is inherently not understanding how adaptation works in terms of in the way the industry is, and is only viewing it from the sense of, well, I watched Harry Potter, so that must mean it's the same thing. It's like, oftentimes, like, for Eizouken specifically, it's even funnier that he's saying this, because the entire reason Eizouken got picked up for an anime adaptation was because there were people who were going around saying that Masaki Yuasa should have directed an adaptation of Eizouken, and then Masaki Yuasa, name searching himself on the internet, found this and brought it up to his production team. Right. That's literally how it came to be. It's them taking the thing and adapting it faithfully, because Eizouken, aside from the imagination parts and little changes to context, is almost a one-to-one adaptation.
Mm-hmm. And I think that something that matters is, I'm not saying that if you're going to critique the Kimetsu, we're not saying that if you're going to critique the Kimetsu anime, or you're going to critique MHA or Eizouken or Black Clover, you can't critique the story, but that it's important to mention that it's, it's Koyoharu Gotoge's story, or it's Yuki Tabata's story, or it's, Hiro Mashima's story for Fairy Tail Later. Not that it's the anime creator's story. It's not Bone's story, right? That was something that was in the MHA video that y'all talked about, was that, like, it's not the studio's story, it's the mangaka's story, and they're adapting it. And so there are times, I think, and I think I mentioned this in the Eizouken Weeb Club, where you can tell that they're really putting their all into adapting this, where they're doing visual things that show that there is a lot of care that they're putting into adapting the Eizouken manga, but the story isn't where that comes into play. So when you start saying that and use your story as your basis, it just doesn't hold up.
Even worse is that, like, so to explain for anybody because even Kimetsu no Yaiba fans, there was a lot of Kimetsu no Yaiba fans pointing this out, is that, like, Kross is making the immediate assumption that the only personality things that Tanjiro has is that he's the nicest person on earth, and that he smells real good, and that he's put through suffering. That's right. An inherent misunderstanding of even what the material is saying to your face, because a big point of Tanjiro's character is that he's nice, but he's thrown in situations that have turned these people who are demons into demons. It's put these people, other people who were some of them even just like him, that made them these jaded, mean, or like they're heartbroken people that are scarred for life. And and because Tanjiro is like this person who, even when the enemy is stabbing and killing people around him, he still feels compassion for them. And that's like his whole entire thing. That's why he's the protagonist. And like Kimetsu no Yaiba has this aspect of like feeling compassion for people and realizing that they too also just went through suffering. And if they had just like been saved, they would have been fine.
And that a lot of these demons, and this is something that, I've argued even within Manji about, is that a lot of these demons in Kimetsu no Yaiba are people, right? They started as people, and that it's through them reliving their past and re-seeing the pain that happened to them, they're able to get over what's causing them to stay as demons. And I even think that there's a more blatant misunderstanding of what's going on, right? It's not that Tanjiro is the nicest guy, he's a good guy, and a bad thing happens to him. What it's showing is that Tanjiro cares about his family, and he's willing to go through all of this for his family. So it's not the worst thing ever happening to the nicest guy ever. It is someone, like, the thing that is someone's reason for living being ripped away from them. Yeah, you can, like, say, oh, well, it's still just a bad thing happening to a good guy. But when you say that, like, okay, so, you can use that kind of reductive reasoning on anything in anime, and just kind of reach your point, which is why I don't like the I don't care argument, because it always boils down to a reduction of, well, this happened and I'm not supposed to care. And it's like, okay, well, just because you didn't care doesn't mean that what's going on there doesn't have reason for it, right? Like, someone could say for Eizouken, well, I don't understand what it's like, it's just people who care about their thing, so I'm supposed to care about the thing they're making because they care about it. When, like, yeah, you are, because you're supposed to try to connect with a character. So you're supposed to see Tanjiro as someone who cares about his family and loves his family, and it is the thing that he cares about most being taken from him.
You not caring is not a flaw with the story. It's just a thing that you personally do not care about. For example, I don't care about Kimetsu no Yaiba a lot. I don't care about Eizouken that much. But I also understand why people care about them. I understand. And, like, it's when you're making these claims, it's showing that you don't have the capacity to separate your own personal feelings from actually going out of your way to go and understand what the work is trying to do. And because just making these claims about, whatever, Kimetsu no Yaiba, because he also mentions shonen protagonists, which he mentions the nicest guy ever. I don't think that Goku, who slapped the pussy of a girl who was sleeping, and like almost threatened to destroy
Goku
the world
slaps
because
a lot of pussy. That man's a
I don't think the man who almost started threatened the structure, like the fates of all the other universes and the Universal Tournament arc, is the nicest person ever. It's
right.
Or even
I don't think a man who says he doesn't care about saving people, he just wants meat, is the nicest guy ever. I wouldn't call Edward Elric the nicest guy ever. And this is something that like really bothers me. And this is something that I'll get into more later, is like this universal like panning of like calling all shonen junk food or comparing all shonen on the same things. Even if you look at the main characters, and so I can't speak too much for Natsu because I haven't read Fairy Tail, but even if you look at Asta, whatever, I think it's Asta, right?
It's Asta.
Asta. If you look at Asta, Deku, and Tanjiro, there are very, very clear differences that anyone who's actually read all three series, or even seen the anime for all three, can tell you about them, right? Deku isn't the nicest guy ever. Deku is a fucking nerd, right? Tanjiro is a guy who genuinely cares about his family and the people around him. And Asta is someone who cares about his friends and
he's a burning ball. He's a burning ball of positivity.
Of positivity and like passion and this like idea that he can do what he wants if he just works hard enough. And so those are just very baseline differences in
which
those
you can get from episode 1 too.
Right, and that's like differences in their basic worldview that you get instantly about the characters. And so when you try to start saying that, oh, I've seen this a million other times in basic shonen protagonists, don't just imply things like that. Give me examples. He mentioned this, there's been a few times already where he's said something, but he's talking about the passion in Eizouken, but all you've shown me of that passion is end cards. Bring in more examples of how this show has passion, and show me examples of where you think other shows don't have passion, past just this baseline example of Tanjiro's like other shonen MCs, so I don't care about him.
He has mentioned passion, the other mentioned passion, because he mentioned the dialogue, which, as we've established, isn't on the part of the team behind the show. It's entirely on the part of the manga, which is also interesting because he mentions like the dialogue that they have isn't just to move the plot along, it's to give these characters personality. Are you telling me that Tanjiro just going around talking to the people in his neighborhood is just to move the plot along? Because it's not. It's characterization. Right. It's showing what kind of person he is. And this also is interesting because this comes back to the we've had 2 videos in a row that do not understand what a plot is, because he's referring to the story. He's referring to the story, not the order of events, which is a plot. But it's about to just keep descending into this, because now, instead of mentioning other shonen shows, he just leaves it off of Kimetsu no Yaiba and uses visuals from other shonen, so we'll see.
If you're going to work in such a niche market as anime, why would you only go halfway? If you're already making your story less appealing to the mainstream market for TV by creating it in the medium of Japanese animation, why would you then try to appeal to the most amount of people possible? At that point, you should just be making a regular TV show, especially since the anime workforce is fucking notorious for being overworked and underpaid to shit, which Eizouken actually makes a point of featuring. And like, I'm sure a lot of people are coming to shows like Demon Slayer to see cool anime sword fights with high quality animation, and don't get me wrong, this show has some incredible Sakuga moments, but you know, you can just go on to Sakuga Boru and find that shit in 10 seconds instead of having to sit through 10 hours of broad character archetypes sitting around and dumping exposition on each other. Better yet, you can watch shows that have a ton of passion put into them and that also have those incredible moments of high quality animation.
Do you want to go off first, or do you want me
I'll go off first. So
please do.
Young man, this is why I mentioned that thing on the Weeb Club, the recent Weeb Club seasonal, about like Doga Kobo is the way they are, because they're able to do so much because they put out so many shows in succession that are high quality and very popular, very marketable. They're able to be as like prominent as they are because they first learned to market to people, right? And they've already set a standard. They set out a brand. You want another example? People talk about Kyoto Animation, but Kyoto Animation 100% is doing things in a very smart way because they can put in the passion while also marketing on cute girls. So they.
You want to know another studio that people don't like to hear, but it's insanely true with?
Is it A1 Pictures?
A1 Pictures.
A1 Pictures produces at least one amazing show that like people always okay, you're like, so for example, there was there's people point out like, oh, Sword Art Online. Sword Art Online's animation has unironically gotten better as the years went on because the show has gotten so much traction, so much popularity that they're able to afford more to just putting as much into the production as they can.
The current seasons of Sword Art Online have better animation than the movie does.
Which is insane. Yeah. And when you watch Sword Art Online, like again, when we talked about previously with the people doing animation and doing the sakuga as part of their passion, right? Mm-hmm. There's even for series that like even when you watch them, they were criticized. There's still like a lot of passion going into it. JC Staff is another studio that's almost exactly like A1 Pictures, where they produce so much, and not all of it's going to be high quality, but because they produce enough, they're able to put their all into things. They messed up with the recent Towaru Maijutsu no Index season 3 because they like adapted the story weird. But if you look at the director, he's a huge fan of the Towaru Maijutsu series, right?
Right.
But because they're able to do so much, they're able to do all these shows because of all the, the money that they make because they were so marketable. The latest season of Towaru Kagaku no Railgun is really well animated. It looks really good.
Because a lot of these guys, like, people like to throw a lot on the studios. And yeah, studios do matter. I think some people don't emphasize studios enough. But the other thing that matters a lot is specifically the staff. A lot of animators and a lot of people working are freelancers, right? So what it comes down to a lot of times, like, you have to have the money to hire these freelance artists. And so, the studios that make, KyoAni is the one that everyone talks about they have a dedicated staff. But when it comes to Doga Kobo or when it comes to A1 Pictures or JC staff, they have the money to hire all these freelance animators to animate the cuts that they need for their anime.
Because if you watched Eizouken, the entire point of the series is trying to. There's that entire arc where you put the screen cap of the word there was Kanamori was trying to get across to the other two that if this was not marketable, if what they made was not marketable and successful, then they wouldn't be able to like produce things as well as they could because of all the costs that goes into it and all the time that goes into all what they're making. Because if they want to make better and bigger productions, if they want better equipment, then they need the money. They need the audience. They need a dedicated fan base, right? Mm-hmm. So that's like an entire point of the show. And conveniently, he's skipped over this part and focused only on look how it's showing that the industry is bad. But what's more baffling is he's saying that why don't they just make a regular TV show because anime is so niche?
It again comes back to this, and he even mentions if you're going to go into the niche market of Japanese animation, for a lot of the people working on these shows, they're Japanese. It's not like some fucking American is born and raised in America and learns to draw and is like insanely talented at, I could either go be a cinematographer for fucking Frasier, or I guess Frasier's whatever, some fucking show, right? I could go work the camera on fucking whatever popular shows are in America now. Or I could go be an animator in Japan. It's people who grow up in Japan and live their whole lives watching, like what you see in Eizouken. You see these two people who, for different reasons, love what they see in animation growing up. Even if it's Western animation, they watch they watch anime, they grow up with it, and they hone their skills so they can enter the anime market specifically. They're not just... it's not like, I direct anime, so I can also go direct a fucking live action show. No, it's I direct anime. And, like, to say it's niche, like, yeah, if you really get into it, anime, especially, like, the late night anime, is niche in Japan, right? Like, because there is a little bit of a stigma around it, but it's not as niche as you're making it sound, right? Japan is a small country, but at the end of the day, like, these animators are animators. Like, they're working on... you know, like people who work for fucking Miyazaki, you know, you could compare them to like Disney here is like fucking that shit there. People watch it and they care about it. And it's big in their culture. There are Gundam statues. It's not as niche as you make it sound when you consider that for a lot of them and a lot of the xenocentric culture of Japan, it all comes down to what happens in that country.
Well, think about how prominent anime stuff is in Japan. Luffy, Goku, the Gundam, you know, Crayon Shin-chan, Hamtaro, right? They're everywhere. They're like you see them everywhere. Love Live is everywhere in Japan.
When Japan was doing the Olympics, one of the big things was that they picked a set of anime and manga characters to represent Japan for the now 2021 Olympics. Is this aspect of their culture that is such an important cultural landmark for them.
It was news that like even like Kobayashi Aika or Aiken said that they wanted to perform Sunny Day Song at the Olympics. Shoko Nakagawa, the artist who performed the theme song for Gurren Lagann, is the one who's going to be carrying the torch. There's anime is like it's niche here, but in Japan it's way bigger than you think. So this entire video so far has been knocking your own credibility into the ground, as well as like showing that you only see things from your own limited Western perspective. But not even just like Western, just your perspective in general. Because it's just, it's strange. Because he mentions that like, why don't they just make more shows that because that are niche. Right. But the popular shows are how they make the niche shows. You get even like here, you have directors that make big thing. Like Nicolas Cage is one of the best examples, or Adam Sandler. They make big movies, successful movies. They like Nicolas Cage wins awards, becomes untouchable, and now they both just act in whatever the hell they want. And every once in a while, Adam Sandler, when he's done going on vacations with his friends and making millions of dollars, he makes something like Uncut Gems, a passion project, because he has the money to do it.
And then you even have people like Alejandro Gonzalez Iñárritu, who does Birdman or The Revenant. And these are like different directors who, you know, they stick to these more niche kind of projects, but they do what they do. And
which is in and of itself its own marketing, because they're marketing to that audience.
Right, because they're marketing to the, people call it Oscar bait, but they're marketing for people who care about like the art form of film. And so there are going to be people who watch anime in Japan who are going to care about, who just want to watch something. And I'm not going to call it even junk food, right? Because, that's like saying that, oh, well, people who watch Big Bang Theory don't care about the characters they watch every week. No, of course they fucking do. That's why they tune in every week, is because for some reason they feel an affinity with these people they see on screen.
Why do you think shows like Game of Thrones were so popular? Right. It's like that. Why do you think the MCU is as big as it is? Because they formed a craft. They formed this, like, the formula is a formula because the formula works. So what I'm understanding from this video is that you believe that because of things that you like and that you prefer, and that because you don't like these other things, that the medium that you are watching should instead conform to the things that you like. Which is strange, to say the least.
Well, I think, and then you get to the really, really fucking disingenuous point about, oh, well, if you're just going to watch these bland characters, first of all, right, I'm going to go with what he said in the description at one point, which is he says, and I quote, I know I'm going to get a bunch of people complaining about me criticizing Demon Slayer, so I just want it to be known that I've only seen up to episode 3. If you've only seen 3 episodes of the show, you shouldn't be saying that these characters are bland, and why are people watching these Sakuga moments of these bland characters? You could just go on Sakuga Baru. Because, first of all, you clearly haven't seen enough of the show to understand the characters and the fights that you would be seeing later. But that also just completely misses the point of why people like anime fights in general. And I wanted to touch on this earlier and I forgot to, and I decided to do it here instead, is that, people like to make this thing that, oh, Monogatari is great because it makes... And I used to say this when I first got into anime. It's like, oh, Monogatari is great because it makes characters sitting down and talking interesting. That's why Shaft is so good. Characters sitting down and talking can be just, inherently just as interesting as a sword fight. Because at the end of the day, a lot of times it comes down to this clash of ideals or a battle in some form. And talking can be just as much of a battle as an actual fight, right? Or just as much of a climax. And so, like, people like to say that. And they like to act like, oh, well, Eizouken, it's insane that it made these talking scenes interesting when I didn't care about the sword fights in Kimetsu. If you saw 3 episodes of Kimetsu, I'm sorry. You didn't see, like, the big fights that had people caring about the show, right? So you can't say, like, you can't be, like, genuine when you say that, when you haven't, and I'm not going to say that, oh, well, you can't say that Kimetsu is not for you if you don't watch all of it. Because it's fair to watch a couple episodes of something and be like, well, that's not for me. But you can't make points about the anime community as a whole and use Kimetsu as your fucking, crucify Kimetsu and, hang it up on this cross of Kimetsu is what's terrible with anime, but then also, like, not have seen it all.
What's interesting is that he's talking about, I don't care about these characters, or it's the show's fault, because in one of the replies that he made to the people when they were pointing this out, he links a video by Digibro. You'll notice that's a trend. He links a video by Digibro that is entitled "You can judge a show by just one episode," which that video has also received a lot of criticism for the same reasons. But the thing is, right? Kimetsu no Yaiba, Tanjiro as a character himself alone is the reason why the fights are so impactful, and the reason why it's so emotional is because people attach to that character. You want to know how I know that? When episode 19 of Kimetsu no Yaiba dropped, all I saw on my timeline was the clip of episode 19's fight. I've seen so many video essays on Tanjiro as a character because the show had attached people to him. They connected with him. They understood him. They cared about him. So it's their word against yours when you're saying that because you didn't care, then the character must be bad.
Well, it's so fucking, like, the fact that he just says, well, if you're going to do that, you could just go on Sakigaburu. And I know that then he makes a larger point of, or you could watch a better show with passion. Doesn't explain how FMA is made with passion, whereas KNY isn't. But, it's there. He makes that point. Doesn't explain himself in any kind of meaningful way. But, even in that first point where he goes and is just like, just look up anime sword fight on Sakigaburu, the reason that people want to see a cool fight isn't just to watch animation of a cool fight. Sure, there are people who do that. But at the end of the day, the reason that they buy into the fight is because they care about the characters and they care about what's going on. So you can't just say, oh, well, if you're going to watch Kimetsu with its bland, boring characters for the sword fights, you could just watch fucking, sword fights. You could just watch sword fights on Sakigaburu. No, because people are watching the sword fights in Kimetsu and caring because they care about those characters. And also, I wanted to make this, I thought about this earlier and I had to wait till now to make the point. Sakuga shows passion. You can't have insanely well animated Sakuga if you aren't passionate about what you're doing. Like, I know that you want to push this narrative that, like, okay, the writing in Eizouken is good, so Eizouken has passion, and I didn't like the writing in Kimetsu, so Kimetsu doesn't have passion. But if you're going to admit that Kimetsu has, good Sakuga, you have to also admit that the animators are working on the Sakuga in Kimetsu had passion for what they were doing.
Here's the thing. Again, I mentioned I don't really care for Kimetsu, and I don't really care for Eizouken. I have Kimetsu's manga at like a 6, and I have Eizouken at a 6. So, like, I don't really care about either of them that much. But me, like, if I was to use Kross's logic, for example, I would say, why do I care? I was watching Keep Your Hands Off Eizouken, and I was watching these characters talking, and I wasn't really paying attention to what they were saying, and I didn't really care. And as I was watching this, I flashed back to watching Shirobako and realized just how much more I cared about the characters in this show, and how much more they dove into aspects of production that I cared about more. So, and that we realized that there was way more passion in Shirobako than there was in Keep Your Hands Off Eizouken. Obviously, I'm talking out of my ass because there's those two are two entirely different shows with two entirely different points. There's like they're not the same thing. Even if just like that's even not even a very like similar comparison to what's happening here because he's comparing Keep Your Hands Off Eizouken a seinen slice of life manga about the production of anime from the view of an amateur club, to Kimetsu no Yaiba, the battle shonen series about a boy whose entire family was slaughtered by demons.
I got a fucking comparison for you. I got one for you. You ready? All
Yeah.
right. It's like watching Rakugo and being like, oh man, I was watching Rakugo and I saw these great Rakugo performances, and it made me realize how terrible the fights in Sword Art Online are. How little passion is in them. Like, the two aren't comparable in any way other than their anime. And like, you know, I love to champion like the idea that like any two things can be compared as long as you compare them on the right objects. But you can't inherently say that like, okay, well, I cared about them talking in this scene, but not the fight scene, even though talking is way more boring than a sword fight. When like, no, because you have to compare like, okay, the Rakugo scenes in Rakugo are comparable in terms of this weight and intensity to sword fights in Sword Art Online. So you can't just say, oh, well, they talked and that's inherently more boring, but I was so interested, so that means it's 10 times better. That's not how that works, you know?
It's even weirder is that, like, you mentioned, because I remember saying that, like, I didn't have as many editing problems watching this video as I did with the Gabe video, but, like, watching this, I'm realizing that he's just taking clips off of YouTube from the Crunchyroll highlights channel.
Mm-hmm.
Because he has, I think he's screen sharing off of the Crunchyroll app when he's just playing, or he's just taking the scenes from Eizouken that are on Crunchyroll's like account and just playing them instead of using the raws. And then he does the same for Fairy Tail. He does the same for Black Clover. He's not really like, it's a very like he's just using YouTube downloader, right, to make this video as quickly as he can. Which isn't showing any passion. I'm not, and I don't feel like I'm too able to critique editing in a general sense because, you know, I don't edit videos in this way. I do put effort when I do certain things in my videos, but I don't edit this kind of video, so I would be speaking out of my comfort zone a lot. But I do think that like having watermarks and having subtitles are things you should try to avoid unless specifically the subtitle accentuates your point. And that's not always true when he has subtitles here. And the other thing I would say is there are times where in the audio track, he has vocal songs. And I'm not a fan of ever putting vocal songs, but like even you mentioned to me before this, you know, when you put Hero 2 in your concert, you have to have that. But I think you need to put the vocals, like in like the vocal song at such a low volume that the vocals can't be heard, right? Yeah, like you shouldn't be competing with your voice versus a vocal track, especially not if you cannot use a vocal track. Well, it was a mistake on my part because upon rewatching my concert video, it was really hard to start listening to what I was saying when as the time went on, and that was a oof on my part. But like, if like he's playing the ED because he was talking about the ED as a banger in this video, when he could have easily replaced this entire soundtrack with just the OST for the show, or even just like a Tyler the Creator beat, because nothing in the music that he's playing correlates with what he's talking about, aside from the fact that it's the ED playing. Right, or at the very least, he could have like, okay, you know, if you really wanted to play the ED, play a couple seconds of the ED while you're not talking, right? Obviously, copyright exists, so play 3 or 4 seconds of the ED while you're not talking to let people hear the song that you think is a banger, and then go back to talking. Because when you're trying to compete with the vocals of a song, that's distracting in a bad way. Because I was realizing as we were watching this, I was like actively started listening to the lyrics of the song as he was talking, and I was like, oh my god. I didn't realize that was happening before. Because I've watched this video like twice. This is my 3rd time watching it. So, yeah. Oh boy. We've been recording for an hour, bro. And we're 5 minutes into this video. We only got 4. We're more than halfway through, so let's go, man. Let's go.
And what really irks me is that the shows I'm criticizing for not having that passion put into them seem to always be the most successful. And I'm not even just talking monetarily, that makes sense. Broadly appealing stuff is always gonna make more money. But what I'm talking about is people saying that these shows are like the best shows of all time. And I know that most people who say stuff like this about whatever shonen series got most recently adapted and has the biggest marketing push are only doing so because they haven't seen anything else. But for people like me who have devoted countless hours into understanding and appreciating art, These broadly appealing shows are virtually incapable of being any higher than an 8 out of 10 because I've seen shows that felt like they were made specifically with me in mind.
543. 542. 542.
Sorry, I didn't mean to laugh.
No, it's fine. It's perfectly fine because we've established this entire time that the man knows nothing or like very little about production, about the industry, about the medium, about the role that the mangaka plays, about discussion in general or anything. But here he claims that he's spent countless hours into analyzing the media that he's discussed. Which
there's two things here. So the first.
Well, there's a lot of things here. There's more than just two, right, bro.
But the first thing is that he says art. He doesn't even specify specifically Japanese animation, which I think is what goes back to a lot of our problems, which is he's very much using this Western mentality and mindset onto Japanese animation. And that's something that, like, you know, is inherent. I would say it's an inherently flawed way to look at it a lot of the times. Obviously, none of us talking about anime can fully buy into Japanese culture and the Japanese mindset because we haven't grown up or lived any portion of our lives in Japan. But that doesn't mean that it's okay to look at an entire industry through your viewpoint and say something, right? There are even differences in Eastern and Western storytelling, so you can't even look at them completely the same because they tell stories inherently differently. Yeah, the fact that he's saying that, like, oh, well, you have these people saying it's their favorite anime of all time, and I know they're new, but they shouldn't be saying those things, when he very clearly is, like, missing large pieces of information into anime as a whole.
It's the equivalent of me being a white guy who just recently, like, took a class on, like, African American culture, and then I walked around with, like, a gold chain around my neck and, like more, and like I was like, yeah, I listened to Tyler the Creator. I know the rest of you white boys don't know a lot about, you know, the hood, but, you know, I know a lot. It's kind of like that, and that's what it comes off as. You kind of cringe a little bit because you're like, I don't like that. I don't like the way that feels.
Yeah, so that's why I started laughing, is because, like, the entire time we've been, like, proving that, like, there's been this narrative building throughout the video of that he just doesn't know what he's talking about, and a lot of times is kind of creating these, like, falsehoods in what he's saying, and then he pulls the, well, I've spent a lot of time in this card, when, like, I'm not going to say he's lying, right? Because countless hours, bitch, if I watched all of One Piece, and that's the only anime I've seen, but I've seen all of it,
that's countless hours.
Countless hours watching One Piece.
You would be knowledgeable about One Piece, but that's all you'd be knowledgeable about.
Right, exactly. And so it's like, countless hours isn't what makes you an expert on anime. And I'm not saying that either of us are anime experts, right? We're not fucking Joe from Pause and Select over here writing books on anime.
Yeah, here I am with my 700 plus watched anime on, like, fucking my anime list, and, like, most of that is just the different Love Live PVs, man. Don't even...
Right, but, like, we've both been around in the community for a long time, I would say, like, because I've known you for a long time in this community. We've been around together for a long time.
I've been watching anime since, like, the days of the 3-part fan sub videos on YouTube.
On YouTube,
Bleach, yeah.
Like, and so... Oh, sorry, continue.
Bro... Okay,
well, like, I'm
really trying, dude.
No, I know, but it's like, it'd be like if I got into, like, I've been getting into, for example, just one thing. I've been getting into wrestling recently, right? And I've been watching wrestling, but I've only been really into it for like a month. And sure, I've spent a lot of time in that last month watching old matches or, like, researching things, but I'm not going to start talking about the wrestling industry as a whole because I don't have that knowledge base, right? I haven't been watching long enough. I don't know what I'm talking about. And I can recognize that. And I think that's something that a lot of people who make anime videos very quickly show, is that they don't know what they're talking about, and they can't recognize that. They can't look at themselves in this bubble and say, okay, maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. Maybe I should, you know, ask people, not who know less than me, but ask people who know more than me and have been around longer to check what I'm saying and make sure that what I'm saying is correct. And that's something that, like, it's clear that these people don't do. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, for example, Alexander is a pretty good example because when you first watch his original video, his older videos, going up to the morality of Gone Freaks, you realize that Alexander from that point on didn't really know that much about anime and anime tropes and characters, because he says that Gon, unlike other shonen protagonists, is like, you know, whatever he said in the morality of Gone Freaks. But when I talked to him about that on, like, recently, like maybe like a year ago, he said that he acknowledged that video was flawed because he didn't really he didn't really watch that much. And then as he's watched more and understood more, it's not, he still has moments where he kind of doesn't understand it and kind of says things that are kind of yikes, but on the average, he understands it more, and he's gone on record disavowing things he said in previous videos. Yeah. You rarely see a lot of AniTubers do that, or at least publicly. Super Eye Patch Wolf is another one who will actively, like, disavow videos that he no longer agrees with, especially after the critique that he got from Craftsdwarf. I especially have done that on many occasions, where I've made even, like... Don't shut up. If you say don't say the thing. Don't say the line. Don't say.
I'm not talking about anyone saving any kind of anime community parts 1, 2, and 3. I didn't say that.
I thought you were gonna say Nozomi's just boobs, but you know.
Oh no.
Yes.
I forget you said that, but.
Yeah, but the point is, right. You need the time is a very good tool because it will help you realize that things you say are wrong, and that you don't actually know as much as you actually do.
I think, and this is something that I know you've tried to make this happen before, and it didn't work out. And this is something that, like, you know, I'm newer to making content. It's something I'm very happy that I have, which is I think it's very important to have a group that you trust enough to bounce your content off of, right? And people to hold you accountable, right? And I'm not going to say that Kross doesn't have people he sends his scripts to before he puts it out. But it's clear that if he checked it and other people checked it and still didn't think there was a problem, like, you need new people checking your stuff, right? And that, you know, it's important that as a community, you know, people might say that, oh, well, this is, you know, we're toxic or we're just promoting hate, but that's not what we're trying to do here. We're trying to hold other creators, and I'm okay with people putting my videos under a microscope and bringing up what I say wrong, and I'm sure you are too, because, like, what it comes down to is that, like, we should be holding each other accountable for what we say so that we can, because, you know, AniTube as a whole is like a thing where people who are newer to anime are going to come to AniTube to watch videos on it. And the better we can make the community of AniTube on YouTube, like, the easier it's going to be for newer people to get in and quickly get caught up to speed with the knowledge base that they need to really talk about things, even if it's not on YouTube, to talk about things in their own lives with other people. And so we just, like, we're trying to hold people accountable because what you say matters, and you need to make sure that what you're saying is, at the very least, has a logical, like, a solid foundation. And when that foundation is crumbling and built on, like, falsehoods and non-truths, it's not a good thing.
What is the insidious thing you wanted to talk about? Because I think it just happened in this part. The reason why he made this video.
No, it's later. It's later.
Well, because he kind of said it already. He said most of these other shows that are popular are at best an 8 out of 10. Which
yeah, but I want to get into it specifically when he mentions his scores for something.
But it's weird because it's like another thing you'll realize is that people who take the numerical scoring system seriously is that even Digibro doesn't believe that the numerical scoring system means anything.
No, because I think numerical scoring is bad. Like,
it's literally just the numerical scoring system is only valuable to the person who is scoring things to get a relative value of what that thing is compared to other things that he likes or dislikes. But when you say things like the show is at best an 8, like
your 8 isn't my 8,
and like I personally think Black Clover and even Full Metal Alchemist are both better than Eizouken. I personally think that. Not the anime. The anime is, the anime something else.
For
But
both? Oh!
okay. But like, no, it's like, I think Eizouken is like, because like it's just like, I don't think Eizouken's all that, but like it's clear that because he likes the show, he is making it out to have more all this passion in comparison to other things, which I think is a problem that like AniTubers will do, and a lot of people making videos, is that they feel in order to strengthen their point, they have to throw other things under the bus. And it just keeps getting worse as it goes on.
Yeah, the throwing things under the bus is like one of your biggest problems, I feel, in anime discourse. Something you harp on a lot, and that's one of this video's major things it does to hype up Eizouken is tear down other shounen.
Which isn't even the same demographic even.
Right, and like I'll just go on this really quickly. Sometimes it makes me really upset that like probably my favorite like kind of anime or manga is the shonen, like, you know, the shonen battle series, or just even just shonen manga in general, right? Manga made for a shonen demographic, because they get unfairly maligned a lot because of how popular they are, and there's a lot of bad discussion around them and a lot of hate that they get unfairly because it's the popular thing from people who, okay, if you don't like it, that's fine, but that doesn't make it worse than what you do like, right? Eizouken isn't some masterful piece of art, whereas, you know, you have your junk food of MHA and Kimetsu. MHA is probably doing some, like, MHA is doing some things that are great and, like, take the real craftsmanship in the writing department to pull off that you're missing because you're just looking at it as this baseline thing instead of actually looking at what it's doing and what the piece is saying, because you get so into this idea of, you know, oh, well, shonen's for babies and I watch real art like Eizouken.
There's real irony coming out of the fact that he's saying that, oh, these guys only watch shonen anime, when the video started out with the man discovering for the first time ever that there are end cards in this show after watching 10 episodes. And like for Eizouken, which is probably like his first instance of realizing that shows have end cards, because again, r/end card. But, you know, we have 3 minutes left. Let's go.
And the production value of a show with no passion behind it would have to be unrealistically high for me to prefer it over a show that does. And this is the reason I've gotten so much flack for giving shows negative ratings, i.e. less than 5 out of 10, but what so many people don't seem to understand is that ratings have no meaning outside of comparing the things you've given a rating to other things you've already given a rating to. Like, if I were to tell you, I think Avatar: The Last Airbender is an 8 out of 10, but then I followed it up by saying the movie adaptation is also an 8 out of 10. You suddenly question if I think that The Last Airbender is significantly worse than the general consensus agrees it is, or if I think that the movie adaptation was significantly better than the general consensus agrees it is, or some of both. And this whole ratings are just comparisons point is pretty much just a long-winded way of saying that every individual will have slightly different opinions of any given piece of media, and the best way to get a better understanding of their opinion is to understand as much about their tastes as possible. If I see someone give The Shining a 9 out of 10 and then give Adventure Time a 2 out of 10, that tells me something about what this person values in their media. They probably like the psychological horror genre and don't like the episodic, wacky monster of the week formula.
So the first thing is the idea that The Shining being a 9 and Adventure Time being a 2 tells you that they automatically like psychological horror over episodic of the week monster. That's not necessarily true. What if they thought that the humor in Adventure Time was annoying, but that they thought that fucking, what's his name, Jack Nicholson?
Jack Nicholson,
yeah, gave like one of the best performances they've ever seen in The Shining, right? There's so many layers to an individual score, and he's putting all this emphasis on, oh, well, the scores say something about their tastes. No. Scores don't tell you anything about what someone thinks about something.
Their reasoning is what you get.
Yeah, like, and that's why I always say I don't think good or bad taste is determined by what someone likes or dislikes, right? Someone could hate all of my favorites and love things that I despise. And I can't say they have bad taste until I ask them, why do you feel that way? right? And actually see if they can reason out their reasons for liking things. And so it doesn't come from, oh, well, I see their... And that's why I kind of hate Mal and AniList on some level and don't have one anymore. Because I think that people put too much emphasis into these ratings and, oh, these compare to other things in a different way. Because at the end of the day, what matters is how you can explain your feelings on a specific piece of art. And so you can't just say that, oh, well, you know... he gets into this weird, like, argument about ratings in a video that's supposed to be about passion for series and so...
That's the weirdest thing, is that, like, we've strayed so far from the point of the video that I think that you realize that this isn't actually a video about the anime industry as a whole or a video about how Eizouken has more passion. It's him attempting to defend his own scores.
Yeah, it's him defending his stance on Kimetsu, maybe his stance on Fairy Tail, and his stance on Avatar's movie, I would assume. Because what he's trying to do is say, oh, well, look, I just prefer things that have passion. It's fine if you don't, but I like things with passion. Missing that, like, Kimetsu has passion in it because the people working on it wouldn't be in the position they are to work on it if they didn't have passion for what they were doing. Like, no one's an animator to pay the bills, right? Like, people say this all the time, and he even mentions this, and yet somehow misses the point. Like, people are animators because they want to animate, so they all have passion in it. And that's what I mentioned, that you mentioned earlier, that I said I think is like kind of insidious, and kind of the real reason he made this video is for this point of defending his scores and defending how he thinks about things, and trying to disguise the whole video as this massive thing about passion and how he feels about things, because that's like, you're just basically masking the fact that you're upset that people didn't like your Avatar: The Last Airbender and Kimetsu no Yaiba takes.
Like, that's what it sounds like. But even beyond that, there's two things. This has nothing to do with the main point that he's trying to make. This is just at best this is a tangent, because why is this in the video about why Eizouken has more passion than other shows? This has nothing to do with that. It's just you defending your scoring system. But secondly, these are all just words and points copped from several different Digibro videos about the same topic.
Right.
Except without his way of reasoning it. Because from the way I understand the way Digibro said it is, again, you were able to determine someone's taste by what, like, because he made that video called The Most Boring Taste in Anime, which is him roasting people's 3x3s based off of, like, if they have the same show, that tells me nothing, but if you have, like, these interesting things, even if I don't agree, it's interesting to me. But that's what it was. It was the extent of you learning something about the person based off of the shows that they praise and the shows that they like. But even then,
I was gonna say, even that has, like, a different context that is missing here, which is he's specifically talking about it inside the context of A. Like, that video I love, actually, because as someone who spent a lot of time in 3x3A threads, a lot of what he's saying is entirely correct. There is this idea of, especially on A, people having very, very similar 3x3s. And so people who have something different that's outside the mold, but that's not a score, right? That's something these are my 9 favorites. So you can try to extrapolate from 9 different things that people call their favorites. What are some similarities here I can pick out? But even then, I'm pretty sure Digi even says in that, and you can't fully know until you talk to them about it specifically. It's not about scores. It's about,
His comparison, like, of Adventure Time and The Shining doesn't even make sense, because let's take me, for example. I have Bleach as a 9 out of 10. I have Kimetsu no Yaiba as a 6. And I have Nanatsu no Taizai as a 1. All 3 of them are shonen. All 3 of them, according to this man, are similar with, like, the basically appeal to a wider audience and blah, 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 blah. Mm-hmm. But for some reason, they're all very far apart from each other in terms of score.
Right.
Which doesn't show anything to anyone, because you're looking at this and like, if you know nothing about me, you're confused. And especially if you don't know anything about shonen. That point doesn't make any sense. There's also the whole thing about Avatar: Last Airbender, and, like, his whole thing about, like, comparison to the major consensus. Well, that's always going to be a thing, because if I personally think that the Last Airbender movie sucks, and Avatar: Last Airbender is goated, which it is, I'm going to see you having them at the same score and then think, why do you have them so positively? Because logic would then deduce that nobody would think 8 out of 10 is a negative score.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously it would mean that, like, you would think that both of these are of the same quality. So you would have to have that level of whatever. But it's sort of like you're making these points about how people are going to make all these assumptions without defending. You haven't made a single point about your reasoning. You have only said things about your scores, which to me means that you value scores way more than you do reasoning or something.
Right, and not even that. It's like you're trying to kind of say that, like, scores matter more than... Yeah, like, you're saying scores matter more than they do. Because I guess, you know, if I had to guess a reasoning, and I'm not going to be someone who's going to sit here and say, this is why. But I will say this is what it comes off as to me, someone watching the video who doesn't know you, which is how you should make all of your videos, is as if it's someone's first video of yours they see, is that, you know, you're upset that people didn't like your Avatar scores, so you're trying to justify how you feel. And I bet if you really do think the Avatar movie is an 8 out of 10, you would be like, well, you can tell that M. Night Shyamalan has passion for the source material. And so there's just... I just don't understand where you're really coming from at all.
We are 7 minutes into the video, and he has already progressively knocked down his own credibility using these statements, contradicted himself by saying that, like, other people, like, know less than him, and was condescending towards his audience when he said that.
Right.
Because this video is also, by the words in the description, is in preparation against people who like Kimetsu no Yaiba, who will see him, like, crapping on Kimetsu no Yaiba and then saying that, like, oh, you guys are actually stupid and wrong, unlike me. It's like, there's already that, but then he spends his time defending his own score system for no reason in a video tangent. So he's destroyed the flow, his credibility, and, like, already alienated and insulted his audience. We're 7 minutes in the video, and that's all I've gotten out of this.
Yeah. And it's just really annoying to see this kind of thing because it's just like a blatant misunderstanding of a lot of what he's actively talking about.
And even the show he's trying to praise is he's blatantly misunderstanding, which is interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, want to continue?
Yeah, we should try to get through this.
Oh boy.
And this is the kind of approach I wish everyone would take towards forming opinions on someone else's score of a show, and even in analyzing their own scores of shows. You'd be surprised what you can learn about yourself if you just took a big list of every movie or TV show or video game or music album or anything and simply listed all of them from best to worst. I've done this, and I've found that I way prefer stories that I can relate to on a personal level and have airtight writing than those which seem more concerned with making cool stuff happen on screen at any cost to the story.
So I just need to say this really quickly. This is when I had said earlier to you this guy is so... This is the part of the video where it gets to this idea of, like, him being holier than thou with his score, which I'm sure is why people who watch this video who don't like it didn't like it, because now he's saying, well, I prefer stories with characters I can relate to and have fucking, you know, tight writing. That's why I like Eizouken and don't like Kimetsu no Yaiba.
He's talking down to his audience, yeah.
Shit, people prefer fucking characters they can relate to with tight writing. 99% of people like characters they can relate to. That's why like you see the common video game trope of the white guy, because that's what people realized. Oh wow, if we just make a white guy, that's what 90% of our audience can fucking relate to.
Well, Vindy, here's the thing though. Here's what's funny is that he's saying I like shows with tight writing and characters I can relate to. That's the reasoning people use for liking Kimetsu no Yaiba.
Yeah, it's insane to act like, you know, like, okay, just because you didn't relate to the characters in Kimetsu doesn't mean that people can't relate to the characters in Kimetsu, right? Again, even to bring up the Big Bang Theory, The reason people watch that because you showed How I Met Your Mother. So, I like How I Met Your Mother more than The Big Bang Theory. I would say it's probably a better show. But I wouldn't say because I relate to the characters in How I Met Your Mother and didn't relate in Big Bang Theory, because, like, people don't tune into a show every week if they don't find it relatable, right? Like, relatability is one of the most important things in media because that's how you insert yourself in emotionally.
It's so, because, like, even worse is I'm listening to this, and you know what I'm realizing? He's just ripping points from Digibro videos and just taping them together. He's taped together the most interesting
without understanding the point from the Digibro video.
He's taped together the most interesting taste in anime and We've Accepted Mediocrity. 2 videos that are talking about entirely different things, but taping them together as if they're the same.
Right, and it's like this legitimate level of, like, it's so disingenuous to act, because at a certain point, at this point in the video, he's acting like he knows he's doing this, and if he doesn't, then he's lying. When you say something like, well, I prefer stories, when I looked at all the things I like and dislike, I prefer stories with tight character writing and characters I can relate to over things that just exist to show me something cool. You're just acting like you have better taste than other people. That's all you're saying is, well, I like things that are true art and not this shonen junk food. And completely, like, just knocking down everything you don't like, as opposed to being, well, I can see what this is doing, but I'm not a fan of it, of the way it's implementing it, or what it's saying, or what it's trying to do. You're just saying, well, what this isn't saying anything. This doesn't have anything of value in it. There's no passion. There's no elements to this, unlike this thing that I like. And it's so bullshit.
A surefire way to get me to click off your video is if you say the words, I prefer media, I look into my media more deeply than others, or I prefer shows that are deeper than others. It's talking down to your audience as if they're stupid and you're smart. Like, it's alienating your audience, and it's like you're elevating you're trying to use that as a tool for for Ethos to elevate yourself, when in actuality it's damaging your credibility the moment you say something that doesn't fall in line with what most people's perspective is of the thing. Like, for example, it's kind of like if I started the video saying that I, unlike other people, enjoy high quality art, and then I continued in the video, and then I said, and that is why I believe factually that The Room is a better movie than The Shining. I would get clowned on. I'd get clown emojis in my comment section.
Right, and all you're doing is, like, drawing these lines of what is one thing and what is the other. And, even if you wanted to say, well, I'm not talking about my fans, I'm talking about the normie audience that would never view my videos. Okay, I know you do this as well, but, like, well, I don't do this intentionally, right? But, like, I'm friends with a lot of people that are deep in the anime community would call normies, right? People who don't...
I don't do this intentionally. What do you mean, bro?
Well, no, but that's what I'm saying is, like, I'm not friends with these people intentionally, but I do intentionally talk to them about things, right? Like, I'll talk about games we like or movies we like, because I think it's interesting getting that different point of view. And if you think that people who say maybe like the Star Wars prequels because they like the fights don't care about relatable characters in their media, you've never actually talked to anyone because you just think you're above them and it's not worth discussing with them about media they like, right? Like, if you think people don't watch MHA and connect with Deku, or don't watch Kimetsu and connect with Tanjiro, like, you're just lying to yourself.
It's very much an elevating. You're elevating yourself and demeaning your audience as if they're lesser than you, which already paints you as, like, pretentious and pompous. You've done so many things throughout the course of this video that aren't the product of you saying things wrong. It's entirely just your reasoning that is the problem. Mm-hmm. Your credibility is on the line if you stomped on it already in the first 7 minutes and then proceeded to try to stomp on everybody else's. But you're out here parading with a toy sword, and I'm standing over you with, like, when your audience is looking at you with, like, full ass, like, arsenals, and you're walking around with your toy sword like, look at me, I am smart boy, I am strongest. That's what's happening here. Like, the people who watched Kimetsu no Yaiba will 100% be more credible on discussion of Kimetsu no Yaiba than you will having only watched 3 episodes.
Right. And that's why, like, I don't like people talk about series they haven't finished, because if you haven't seen it in its entirety or read it in its entirety, like, you just aren't as eligible to talk about it as someone who has. And, like, it holds more weight for what? Who's seen all of Evangelion to say, I have problems with Evangelion, than you, who's seen, even if you think, okay, well, someone who hates Eva must be a fucking idiot who doesn't understand what they're seeing. It's like, okay, well, he's seen it all and still doesn't like it. Have you seen it twice?
Yeah. Wait. No, yeah.
Yeah, you've seen it twice and still don't like it, as opposed to someone who's seen 3 episodes and is like, oh, well, you know, Kimetsu sucks. It's like, it's fine to say, you know, and he even says this in the comments. He says, I can tell what kind of show it is. I know it's not for me, and this is how I know. If you want to say Kimetsu's not for you, that's fine. But at the end of the day, you cannot act like you're just saying Kimetsu's not the show for you and not saying that, oh, well, the show is just not as good.
We talked about this in the last EWB, but there's a difference between subjectivist statements and objectivist statements. The moment you you change your stance from I personally don't appreciate this to this show is flawed for this reasoning, you are switching to an objectivist stance.
Right. And you have to be very careful when you do that you know what you're talking about. And you know, you could be, you know, and that's why people try to hide behind this subjectivity thing. But if you're going to say that you like shows with relatable characters and tight writing, but you don't like Kimetsu, what you're saying is you think Kimetsu doesn't have tight, relatable characters or tight writing. So if somebody proves to you the opposite, you're just wrong. As opposed to, and I think what that says more than anything is, like, and this might sound really bad to say, but you just don't know your own tastes, right? And that's something that, like, What and I have talked a lot about, like, our tastes, right? And, like, I don't say I like good character writing or anything like that. I say I like media that makes me feel warm and fuzzy inside, right? Like, that's what I prefer. There are media that I can say are good, right? Like, I haven't seen it, but I know Technolize is something that people really like, and I could probably watch it and get something out of it, but it's not going to become a favorite for me because I like things that give me, you know, this, like, warm, fuzzy feeling inside of feeling good and feeling good about myself and the people in my life and everything around me, you know? And so, like, when you just boil it down to these basic things that everybody likes and everyone can agree are good, like tight character writing or tight writing and relatable characters, you're just, like, acting like you're better than people because you're saying something that people are going to almost always agree with or better to try to prove your point as opposed to actually saying what the reality of the situation is.
Kross, I'm going to be real with you. Every person on Earth watches a show and likes it for the relatable characters and the tight character writing. Everybody on Earth. You are not the only person alone on Earth who appreciates these things. You are talking as if you are living in a bubble where you have not engaged in discourse with other people, which is ironic considering the point that you've just made that you have to learn the taste of others, which you haven't done considering the statement you just made. Right.
Yeah, saying you like relatable characters and tight writing tells me nothing about your taste.
Because I could hear that and I could say, "Oh, you like Love Live Sunshine?"
Right.
You like Black
I could
Clover?
say you like MHA, you know, when you very clearly have said you don't like these, but those have relatable characters and tight writing. And if you want to say, oh well, it doesn't, I can point out tight writing and relatable characters in MHA. I can point out how certain members of Class 1A exist to give the character someone to relate to. But you just want to ignore that because that doesn't fit the narrative you're trying to push, that these shows made with passion because they have in cards goes above this shonen junk food that you don't like.
And if we're going to bring it back to the end cards. Shokugeki no Soma also had end cards and it's a shonen. So
I'm pretty sure, doesn't MHA have end cards?
No, not MHA.
Okay. Well, you want to know some proof of passion in MHA if we're talking about end cards? Horikoshi, Kohei Horikoshi, the mangaka for MHA. Every week when the MHA anime is airing, when the anime airs, he'll post kind of a drawing of his own about something that happens in the episode. Wow, it's almost like he has passion for what he's doing and the characters he's writing in.
How does it
maybe
always
MHA's
come back
made
to
with
MHA?
passion. Maybe it's good. The reason is it's because MHA is the biggest. MHA and Kimetsu kind of, but really MHA, because it's been going for a while, is currently the biggest thing that exists in the anime space.
Yeah.
And so it's something that everyone has seen, so it's very easy to make comparisons off of MHA or throw MHA under the bus to prove your narrative, because you can assume that if you're making a video for an anime community to watch, 99% of those people have seen MHA. Yeah, let's just get through the rest of the video, because I got really mad, but we just gotta finish this video. I wouldn't even say I'm being chaotic. Also, if you think that's the opposite, you don't understand how much intentional chaos I throw out into the Weeb Club. But I wouldn't even say I'm being chaotic. I'm just getting upset at, you know. Well, I have in my bio on Twitter, I make videos on my one true love shounen manga. And so when this man's throwing my thing under the bus, yeah, I'm gonna get a little upset.
And by doing this, anyone can find the media that appeals most to them and seek out more of that. You know, I'm not saying there's no place for shows like Fairy Tail or Demon Slayer or My Hero Academia. They tend to function as great ways to introduce someone to the medium of anime because they are so broadly appealing. But like, do we really need 40 plus new shows every season, most of which look like they're either trying to do what My Hero Academia already has covered or are actually appealing to a specific audience but can't manage to take the story farther than acknowledging the niche thing that the show is about? Where are the shows doing what Eizouken is doing? Where are the shows that are able to generate a world and characters that I completely believe exist and that create dramatic situations for those characters that I can relate to?
Okay, I'm pausing it. I got it.
Yeah. Go off, please.
Okay, so, young man. I'm talking to you like I'm pulling you in my office, and you just...
I watch anime, and I completely believe that these animated characters I'm watching exist.
Well, you know... I mean, good for you, sir. I know you walk around with your Naruto headbands in class, and you say, guys, I watch Eizouken, and my best friend Asakusa introduced me to this new anime, and, you know, maybe if you personally believe that that character is real in your mind, good on you, but they're not real. So, here's the thing. So, this is where you come to realize what this video is, because you know what he has just ripped another point from another Digibro video called "There's Too Much Anime." He has ripped another point from it, and you're realizing this video is just a cobbled together Frankenstein monster of Digibro videos without any of the concentrated points because they're all isolated ideas from each other. So like, he's saying that do there need to be 40 anime? Well, anime is a business, and they are doing these many shows because they're trying to get as many people to watch it as they can. And because of the accessibility of anime through streaming and the worldwide appeal of anime now, there's a bigger demand for these shows to reach out to the world than it was back in the 90s or the 80s. So we have that on top of the idea that, like, he's saying that he starts off this point with, you have to learn to search out shows that appeal to you, but then says that the industry should appeal to me.
Yeah, what about me? Guess what? A show like MHA or Kimetsu no Yaiba appeals to me. Or Black Clover. I love these themes of friendship and hard work. You know, the 3 pillars of Shonen Jump: friendship, hard work, and victory. I love that shit. That's like my favorite kind of pillars? Fucking.
There's titties.
No, shut the fuck up. Those are like the 3 pillars of Shonen Jump, and like, what a surprise! Those are 3 of my favorite themes to see expressed in media. So, like, to sit here and act like, I don't know, like, oh, well, we should be making things that people are appealing to, and to act like there aren't people who even know that what, like, because he even mentioned this already. He's like, oh, well, if you really like this, I would recommend, if you really like MHA or Kimetsu no Yaiba, I would recommend that you go out and find things that you really like.
But there is already.
Maybe that's something that I really like and really know about.
For example, I fell in love with anime through Bleach, through its anime. Through Bleach, I then watched more, and I found out about Soul Eater. Through Soul Eater, I ended up finding about more shows like Gurren Lagann, about, like, I even watched, you know, shows like Anohana, or Your Lie in April, or Gothic, or through all these things, because each thing will lead to another, because there's such a variety in so many shows going out, there's a lot for me to go out there and explore, which is the appeal of the seasonal anime model, right? But like, the reason why there are so many is because, as you've mentioned, there are many people with different tastes that have different things that they value. So, and the anime industry wants to market to as many people as it can. So by doing this, there are other creators who have passion for the medium that they're in, creating shows that also appeal to these other people and these other genres. Now, you have established that this video is saying that because the anime industry does not appeal to me, they should instead appeal to me. But you then said, where are shows like Eizouken that build worlds and characters that I like interact with? It's so easy. Shows like Eizouken. Here's one, New Game. New Game is a show entirely about the gaming industry and how in designing video games and stuff like that. You have Paranoia Agent, another show that's more serious but talks about anime production. You have Perfect Blue, Paprika. You have The Idol Master, talks about the idol industry. You have Shirobako, another show about producing anime. That's off the top of my head, and that's only because I went out and bothered to understand the medium that I am talking about and learning about. For me personally, I like shows like Love Live or K-On! Through my love of K-On! And Love Live, I found shows like New Game, Hibike Euphonium, Violet Evergarden, I'm watching Hinamari's Sketch because it's similar in line to things that I've liked, that Craftsdwarf, who also appreciates those similar shows, has recommended to me that they're watching for the Weeb Club. There's also Koisudo Asteroid, Dumbbell. You know, but the only reason that's possible is because the anime industry is so varied and wide that there's different shows that appeal to me. I'm not going to go and watch Technolize right now because personally it does not appeal to me. But if anime was to go in the model that you are describing of shows that only appeal to you, where are the shows that appeal to me? You are forming this argument in a bubble of your own experiences and understanding that you are blind to understanding anything else, which has limited your understanding of every other show out there and also the show you're talking about.
It's also a very clear limited understanding. Like it's his understanding, and it's a very limited understanding, which is something that has been very clear throughout the video, is that like it's his own limited understanding. And like it almost comes down to he can't even describe his own tastes very well, because all he tells us about his tastes are, I like relatable characters and deep and tight writing, and it's like,
which every show can be. It's like You're not saying anything. You haven't said anything. In those videos that you're talking about, like with Digibro, when he's talking about his own taste and his 3x3s, Digibro very clearly defines that he likes shows that relate to him in terms of like the person that give him the same feelings of experiences that he's had before. That's why K-On! Is his favorite anime of all time, because it reminds him of the nostalgia and the feelings of like friendship and like the high school years of hanging out with his friends. He made a whole point about how Azusa being left behind on the school field trip made him think about one of his friends being left behind when they went to an anime convention because he was too young. That's like the reasoning, but you don't have that reasoning. Digibro never said that he appreciates shows that have, Unga Bunga, it have the good character writing and the relatability. He said he clearly defined what it is for him, right? You have displayed that you not only have the ability to empathize and understand others, but also yourself, which is what you have accused your audience of just seconds earlier.
This is the part of the video where I got like really upset watching it the first time, because it just gets really disingenuous and very much like self-serving and like
he's jacking off his own credit, his own like presence.
Yeah, he's performing self-fellatio without really saying anything of substance.
I can hear the tip of his dick attempting to reach like anywhere close to his uvula right now.
I can't even understand him anymore because he's so high on the smell of his own farts, but
okay, we gotta be nice, we gotta be constructive.
We gotta be nice.
God damn it, we did it again.
Well, I think the best way to explain this really quickly, if you want the non-mean version, what we said is, you're being very self-serving on what you're saying, while saying things of very little substance that anyone could say about themselves, and you're trying too hard to build yourself up instead of letting the points you're trying too hard to build your ethos, instead of letting your logos and your pathos build your ethos over a period of time.
You're a rich kid buying things with your daddy's money instead of getting a job and buying things yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's happening here. So we're almost done. We're just going to run through the rest of it. Here we go.
And not just relate to in the I want to be the very best like no one ever was kind of way. I'm talking about the I'm pulling an all-nighter to finish this art piece because I'll only be satisfied if I'm constantly one-upping my own work and I know that it'll probably be bad for my overall health, but I just gotta do it anyway because I'm an artist and that's how we work kind of way. If your favorite shows are always the most popular shows, I'm happy for you, but I'd like to give you a piece of advice. Look for the shows that feel like they were made with you specifically in mind. Look for the shows that aren't just trying to appeal to the most people possible. Look for the shows that have passion. Because right now, I'm having trouble finding them.
I really like that Crunchyroll logo in the corner. I really like it. It's very, very nice.
Yeah.
I like to see that this man is sponsored by Crunchyroll. Okay. Young man, you're back in the office again. I see you have told the other kids on the playground that that they like the wrong things, and they got mad at you.
Yeah, you're like, if you like these shows, maybe find things that are made for you. Again,
It's what they're doing.
Right. Guess what? People care about shonen manga. Someone like For Neverworld. He doesn't just talk about shonen manga because it's popular. He talks about the reason he gets so emotional over Naruto, where he cries when he reads the last chapter, or talks about these shonen series, is because that's what appeals to him. Just because that's like saying oh, well, it's boring if you like The Office. No. Now, if you make The Office your entire identity, sure, that's a little boring because a lot of people do that. But it's boring to make any singular thing your entire identity, right? But at the end of the day, it's like things that are popular not because they're made for a wide appeal, but because they connect with a lot of people. And if it doesn't connect with you, that's fine. But to act like there isn't a market for certain things that can connect with them, it's just insane.
Hey, Vindy, you know what show says that?
What show?
Keep your hands off Eizouken. I'm sorry, Eizouken.
You're right.
It's so he's demonstrated so many things about himself, but the number one thing that he's demonstrated is that he doesn't understand the show that he's trying to praise. Because Keep Your Hands Off Eizouken has very many segments with Kanamori telling these people that they because he mentions I want the show to have the passion that they have to keep one-upping themselves, do like that, but that attitude alone is what caused them to be behind in production. Kanamori would talk to them and be like, you guys are running behind schedule. If you want this thing to be done, you have to compromise. We have to reach the widest people possible if anybody is going to realize that you're here. Mm-hmm. The biggest irony that you realize this guy isn't that in the discourse is that Eizouken was one of the most popular shows of last season.
Right.
It had some wide appeal from Masaki Iwasa's name to the meme with the opening. It had some appeal. Everybody in Annie Twitter was talking about it when it came out. More so than the only thing I had to compete with during that season was Ishizoku reviewers, and that was because of a dumb meme.
It was the 6th most popular show member-wise on Mal.
It's
which is insanely popular.
Which is funny because he's painting Eizouken as the show that is only for the niche of the niche. When Eizouken, I'm gonna look on Mal right now. I want to see because Eizouken, I know Eizouken's score is 8 point something. It's really highly rated.
8.28. Which is insanely high rated. And I also love, really quickly, he mentioned Full Metal Alchemist is a good example of a shonen, and talks about, he hears people say that MHA is the best series of all time. Full Metal Alchemist is literally the #1 rated anime on Mal, and most people consider it one of the best anime of all time.
Keep Your Hands Off Eizouken is ranked 248 on my anime list. That's high. For a seasonal show, considerably high considering everything else that exists. He's just demonstrating that he does not understand the medium that he is talking about, or even the community that he's talking about.
Right. Yeah. And it reaches this point where it's like, again, it's fine if you don't have the biggest knowledge base, right? Like, if you want to be an AniTuber and you don't know everything about the community, you don't have to know everything about the community. But talk specifically about, or I guess industry is a better word than community. Talk specifically about the anime you watch. Make your Eizouken video about Eizouken. Don't make it about the anime industry as a whole when you don't know about the anime industry as a whole, right? Like, stick it to the one specific thing.
There's this mindset, right? And a lot of smaller AniTubers will fall into this trap of, like, they'll watch the YouTubers that they were inspired by. They'll watch Giguk, they'll watch Demo, and they'll watch Digi, and they'll end up parroting a lot of their points and without understanding them. And then a lot of times they think because their famous YouTuber said these things that it must be true without them having to verify it. Well, here's the thing. As I became more knowledgeable about anime, I realized that Giguk would say things that were not entirely accurate. I realized that Digi would say things that were not entirely accurate. But I only understood that because I engaged in discussion and I understood more about the medium, which you have to know. You can't just assume that these YouTubers are always telling the truth, because as we've just detailed in this video, this man is spouting nothing but misinformation and his own opinions stated as objectivist statements.
And as we've said, we both get things wrong all the time. Like, it's okay to get things wrong, okay? But first of all, if you're wrong, you probably shouldn't be doubling down in the comments like you're a KFC sandwich. And thank you for allowing it out. And second of all, like,
fuck you.
You shouldn't just like don't sit around and refuse. Like, it's okay to not make a video about something if you don't think you know. And if you do think you know, check your video with someone, even if you think you know a lot. Check your video with someone who you know knows more than you. And if you don't know anyone who knows more than you, it's like the saying, if you think you're the smartest person in the room, find a bigger room. Or find a different room. Like, if you really don't think there's anyone who knows more than you, find someone who does, right? Like, if you're making videos on YouTube about anime, you can probably find people, as long as, you're not like some insufferable douche. What I don't think this guy is, right? I'm sure he's a nice guy. So, find people who know more and bounce your ideas off them. Make sure that what you're saying holds up and isn't like this.
It's not a good look, especially for your credibility when you do things like this. And like, this video already has alienated all of the Kimetsu and Yaiba fans who come in and watch this show. All the shonen fans who you have insulted and beaten into the ground and said that you are superior then. It's not a good look. It works for someone like that anime snob, because that anime snob has already painted a persona around himself of superiority, and then parades that superiority around with other people who also feel superior. That's right. But it's clear that you don't want to project yourself that way. But you're doing this and then projecting yourself as if you are superior to everybody else. Yet also pulling the subjectivity card of, it's just my opinion, don't bully me over my opinion. And that's not right. And it's not good for your look.
Yeah, I think, again, like, something that people don't like to do but should matter is, like, if someone has a problem with your opinion and they can give you a legitimate, like, reasoning for it, then argue that reasoning. And if they're just saying, well, you're stupid, and not giving reasoning, who cares? Because what they're saying has no weight if they're not putting any kind of meaningful, evidence behind it, right? Like, it all comes down to the shit you learn in your fucking high school English class. Guess what? That actually matters. Like, have evidence for your claims, and if somebody doesn't have evidence, don't worry about their claims. It doesn't fucking matter. And, like, be willing to engage in, like, an open discussion of these ideas and, like, argue with people about things, but give your reasoning, and then care about the reasoning as opposed to just whether or not someone likes something, because that's not really how it matters.
There's a very good video by Daft Pina about Epithet Erase and Jello Apocalypse going through the process of making Epithet Erase, and how he learned a lot of things through the process of making his own show. And in this video, he clarifies a lot that you have to have people around you that are willing to double down and force you to work and to like criticize you and to keep you in line and make sure that everything you're doing is right. He points out the importance of the fact that he learned to compromise and that things might be better later on, but they have to get it done. And it's sometimes, and like, you have to make it as good as you can in the limited amount of time that you can. He points out that, like, you know, he can't even, like, he used to say things like, oh, this show has a great script, but bad animation, but it's like, this show has great animation, but a bad script is something I can't excuse. But after working on Empathetic Race, he realized that, like, you know, somebody worked and had the chance to work on this animation. And that animation is something somebody put their heart and soul into. Even if the script wasn't good, that animation is something I can appreciate because I've worked and realized that it's good like that. And he points out that, like, if you're working on a show, be thankful because barely anyone gets this chance. And it's ironic that this guy is saying that Kross is saying this. He's saying this as a perspective of an artist. We artists are like this. No. Right. Artists who are out there in the world and who are working realize that there's some things that they just have to work past, but that they're in this industry because they have the passion. And I know you in your comment said passion doesn't equal hard work. And it's more about, which I'm going to read this comment because this pinned comment really bothers me because it says something about him. I'm going to read it out. So he says, I should have made this clear in the video, but I'm not saying that passion equals hard work. If that were true, then every anime ever would have what I describe as passion. Basically, it is how much a show feels like it was made with a specific audience in mind. It doesn't have to be me. That's not what passion is. That's just factually not what it is.
And also, if you want the word for that, that's called a demographic.
Which exists.
Which, you know what shounen is?
No, it's a genre, Vindy. It's a genre.
It's a demographic. And the problem is it comes down to, like, he wanted to talk about Eizouken because it was popular and because passion is a large part of Eizouken. It is not the only theme in Eizouken.
It is one half of the themes of Eizouken.
Right. But passion does matter to Eizouken, and you want to also defend yourself and dunk on Kimetsu and prove that you're right. And to act like, well, I like Eizouken, so it's made for a specific audience, and I don't really like Kimetsu or MHA or Black Clover, so those aren't made for a specific audience, is just disingenuous. Right?
It's worse because if the comment goes on, and he's like, I know I'm going to get a bunch of people complaining about me criticizing Demon Slayer, so I want it to be known that I've only seen up to episode 3 because he promised a friend he would watch at least 3 episodes. So don't expect any responses from me on your comment about why Demon Slayer actually has the most passion out of any show ever, and definitely don't try to convince me I should watch more. I can tell what kind of show it is. I know it's not for me, and this is how I know. And he links the Digibro video. You can judge a show by one episode. You're continually beating down these people that are going to disagree with you by insulting them, telling them that you already, like, you don't care. You're basically saying, get out of the way, haters. I don't care about anything you're saying. And it's like, you see how he, like, demonizes them. He says that, like, the people are going to come in here and say it has the passion out of any show ever, and then don't try to convince me to watch more. The people in the audience are just pointing out that you are mischaracterizing the show, that you've painted it as something that it isn't.
He defines it in a later comment that I'll read, where he says, what I'm defining as passion is a great desire to connect with the viewer on a personal level as possible. That's what I meant by this show felt like it was made specifically for me. Basically, mainstream shows that appeal to more audience members are definitely capable of having what I call passion, but I think it's exceedingly rare because by their very nature, the characters rarely feel like real people. It's even half the extent that every main character in Eizouken does. So if you really think that something like Kimetsu or MHA, the characters aren't real because they're trying to make one character as broad as possible, you misunderstand the characters in both series. The reason that something like MHA has all of Class 1A, the reason Kimetsu no Yaiba has 3 main cast members, the reason that a lot of shonen battle series fall back on multiple cast members is to give everyone someone that they can relate to. and give all those people that can relate to a character an arc. It's why Love Live connects with so many people, because there are so many different characters that, like, I watch Love Live and I can connect with a different character than who watches Love Live and connects with a character, or Craftsdwarf, who watches Love Live and connects with the character. There, you have all these characters because when they're each written well, it allows people to connect with a character they're choosing and watching that character go through an arc and then cheering with that character as a team when they go through things. It's why people like Haikyuu or other sports anime. You can't just say that, oh, well, MHA was made for a broad audience, which MHA is made for an audience, the same way that Eizouken is made for an audience. I'm sorry to break it to you, Eizouken isn't made for some small niche Western audience watching anime. It's made to go in its late night anime time slot.
Well, even more, like, if you watched the show and actually listened to what was being said, Kanamori says it. Like, we're doing this because, yeah, if you do this for the sake of yourself, right? Who's gonna see it? Nobody's gonna see it. You're doing this to proclaim to the world that you exist. And the only way to do that is to appeal as many people as you possibly can. And to get an audience. That's what they say in the show. And they say that as if it's right. Because guess what?
If you think Eizouken as a show is going to go against what it as a show is saying, then you don't know what you're talking about.
It's so baffling because, let me break it down to you. I see Deku. This kid who had nothing in his life, was bullied all his life, and was told that he wouldn't do anything or achieve his dreams ever because he just couldn't. And then gets the chance to do it, but then realizes slowly that there are people around him that are trying just as hard as him, and realizing that he also has to push himself. People relate to that. I relate to that. I don't like Tanjiro that much, but I see Tanjiro, who cares about his family, loves his family, to the point that seeing them taken away from him haunts him every single day, and that he'll cling to Nezuko because he loves her, and that he'll be kind to people even if they're hurt him, because he understands the pain of loss and suffering. People relate to that because they also have loved ones that they lose, or that they have families that they love.
Right.
You are inherently denying these people of their feelings when you say that these shows, by their nature of existing, don't have what Eizouken has. What right do you have to say that, actually?
Who are you to say that Tanjiro doesn't feel like a real character, but Kanamori does? It comes back to, Craftsdwarf hates when people say this media is contrived. All media is contrived. No character is a real person, right? They're all written as characters.
I hate to break it to you, Asakuse ain't real. You're not gonna see a Kappa-looking girl coming out of the ground and talking about her favorite... the world she's gonna make based off of what your room looks like. That's not gonna happen.
Right. So it's just ridiculous that you think that, it almost comes down to the point of the video isn't about passion, because even what he describes passion as isn't passion. It's almost like he's trying to say, well, niche is better than broad, or niche is better than mainstream. And you want to know what fucking show he uses as an American sitcom that he likes? Is fucking How I Met Your Mother, a show that he says he likes. One of the most popular sitcoms, one of the most popular TV shows in the mid to late 2000s and early 2010s. It's insane.
If you're gonna if he's gonna cut points from Digibro's number one favorite anime is K-On!, one of the most universally known slice of life shows of all time. Even in Japan, the years that it was coming out, even people who didn't watch anime knew what K-On! Was.
K-On! Was on the Disney Channel in Japan. There is an entire school that is a K-On! Museum. People like K-On! That don't watch anime because of how broad its appeal is. And guess what? It has a broad appeal because the characters are very relatable. People can relate to any one of those four girls, right? Personally, I relate to Yui really hard. I see a lot of myself in Yui. So I really like K-On! I really fucking connect with these characters and their struggle, because once you can find that character you relate to, the tight writing carries you through it. It's not...
it's just another example is like One Piece, right? It's like
right.
One Piece is universally loved because it has all these characters that people latch onto. Like, it's not like, listen, get out of the idea that shows become popular because they were predestined to be. No mangaka,
or they're made to be popular, right?
No mangaka in the world starts their work and says, "I'm gonna be popular." You think Eiichiro Oda did that? You think Akira Toriyama did that?
And also, another, like, the counter to that is, no mangaka starts their manga and doesn't think, I'm going to try my best to make the most popular, best manga I can. Nobody makes a piece of media and is like, I'm only going to appeal to a very small portion of people because I don't want to make money. Nobody thinks like that. And if you think they do, you don't know what you're talking about.
The biggest counter is the MCU. Because the MCU didn't start popular. They had no superheroes. They didn't have Spider-Man. They didn't have the X-Men. And those are the Fantastic Four. 3 of their most popular characters ever. Gone. Cut off.
The only ones people knew about before the first Avengers movie came out.
And then they said, we'll make a movie about Iron Man, who was C-list at best at the time. And
especially at least in the public persona. Like, you could say for comic book fans, but when they're making it for the public persona, I remember when that movie came out, I didn't know who fucking Iron Man was. Nobody did.
The only thing I knew Iron Man was from was like a Marvel superheroes video game that I had on PlayStation. Mm-hmm. Like, that's the only way I knew him. So it's such an asinine idea to believe that these things were predestined to be popular, because that's not the case at all. Like, Cats was made, the movie Cats was made with the intention of, like, Oscar bait, but they don't do it thinking, like, maybe the investors do, but you think Andrew Lloyd Webber made Cats and said, yeah, this will blow up? No. The history behind Cats is failure. They thought they were gonna fail on every point, but it's one of the most popular musicals of all time.
Right. And people don't make fucking, you don't make a manga being like, man, I hope this gets canceled in fucking 2 volumes. I don't want the money of being popular, I don't want my studio to be able to grow. Like, even Eizouken, right? Fucking Masaki Yuasa isn't making Eizouken being like, yeah, I just want a small select group of people to like this show. He's thinking, I'm going to make a good show. People are going to like it. And that's just how it fucking is. Like, you're literally saying that one of the most critically acclaimed anime directors of all time, who makes some of the most universally praised and loved anime by people who care about the medium, is making niche things for, like, a small group of people.
It's what the bubble that you're in is limiting your knowledge, and it's showing in this video. Side note, the thumbnail that he's using is actually fan art, and he didn't credit the fan art until the artists themselves came and commented on the video and said, give me credit, please.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. Interesting.
So, that's weird. This is weird. 2 videos in a row, we've had someone taking fan art and not crediting it until, one of them only doing it until after they were called out on it. We talk about, like, not understanding the medium and only going off of your own bubble and understanding. And we talked about, like, My Hero Academia. Why is that? Is that like a formula for how not to make a video or something?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest hope for EWB, because I've said this before, even for myself, even when I didn't make anime videos, was that, like, I would love if AniTube was at least in quality equal to that of, like, gaming videos on YouTube or movie content creators on YouTube, Like, I don't think there's a single person making anime videos as good as fucking, like, Ralph the Movie Maker, And I would love if we could use EWB as a way to, like, prop up AniTube and kind of force people to actually critically look at their content and what they're saying and try their best to improve. And so like I think that if you watch these videos, you know, you can kind of get a better idea of like what are some flaws in logic or in what you say in your video or even in editing that you can use to improve what you make.
It's just, I just hope that like this series, because this series, again, we're not trying to start drama. If anything, if Kross doesn't watch this, or if Kross takes this the wrong way, it doesn't change, at least somebody watching this who wants to be an anime YouTuber, or just a YouTuber in general, realizes and takes these points to heart.
Right.
Because I want to watch good videos, man. I don't want to watch bad videos. I just want to watch good videos.
I mean, yeah, at the end of the day, it does come down to, like, if you're going to make videos, if you're going to make content, legitimately have passion for it in the sense of, like, you know, what I mean by that isn't, you know, you have to constantly want to make videos, but, like, if you're going to put the time in to make a video, make a good one, you know? And I get that people think their videos are good, and maybe we think, maybe, you know, Kross would defend this, and we sit here and say it's not, but, like, if you know, have the care to accept criticism and to find people who you can run it by and say, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? Is what I'm doing good, you know? Try to improve all the time. Always be trying to improve. Because, you know, I mean, all of us here at the Weeb Club, you know, Crafts included in this, just want AniTube to be as good as it can be and want anime discussion to be as good as it can be.
God, it's just, look, I'm tired of, like, every single one of my favorite YouTubers is not an anime YouTuber. The only exception is Craftsdwarf. But like, that's not good. Like,
yeah, because anime is like the biggest thing to you. So why wouldn't people who talk about like your favorite thing be at the top?
It's just like, look, we're not sitting here from a lens of we're perfect. Definitely fucking not. You think I sit there after my videos are uploaded and rewatch them, and I find like 10 flaws instantly.
I literally say constantly my video. I didn't want to be on EWB because I didn't think my content was good enough to criticize. I don't think I'm better than Kross. I don't think I'm better than anyone else in AniTube. But, you know, I think that ideas are out there and open to be criticized, and it's only through critiquing each other and creating a situation where we are all holding each other accountable to make the best content we can make that we can further AniTube. And at the end of the day, if you want anime to grow and you want anime to be seen as less niche, the only way is for the discussion of it and the community around it to grow past this cringy, you know, like the idea of it being cringe and these stereotypes it has. And AniTube is a great place to start because of how big YouTube is as a platform. That if we can get more AniTubers out there who are making good content that's knowledgeable and doesn't spew misinformation and helps further like good ideas, that's the best way. That's a great way to start, and that's something that we, I think, all need to just be more wary of, like in AniTube. I think, I don't know.
You just have to have the passion. I'm so tired. All right. Thank you guys for watching. I think that's all I have to say because, you know, this is a 9-minute video and we're almost reaching the length of the first EWB because somehow there's more. There's just...
Yeah, we're at 2.5 hours now. Somehow. I don't...
No,
I
it's
don't know
not
how
somehow. Because...
Well, I think it's because I think it's more than just the videos being one thing or the other. I think a lot of what it comes down to is, like, because we have something to start with discussion-wise, we can go really in-depth into talking about kind of the more, like, individual points they make and really dig into them. And so it just causes these recordings to be super long. But I think that's good because it's this longer-form discussion of what's going on to only further what everyone's doing.
Yeah. So hopefully, yeah. Because it's like we said about, like, with AniTube Digest. AniTube Digest is cool and all, but Shapes doesn't remember what happens in a lot of the videos, and he only covers as much as he does because he like, it's like seasonal anime watching but on crack. So it's like, you know.
Well, Shapes hasn't talked about a single one of my videos, so why do I care?
Well, yeah, he's not cultured and doesn't read shounen.
Oh.
Uh-oh. Thank you guys for watching another video by the Weeb Club. If you have any suggestions for videos, maybe you could patron us and make us watch a video. Maybe, perhaps, who knows?
That would be a fucking great Patreon goal. Is like at a certain point they can suggest videos for us to watch for these EWBs.
Yeah.
But the Patreon right now is very bare bones. It'll only get remade when we hit a landmark. So if you want to see more, patron us, and at a certain point we'll revamp the Patreon, give you more options, give us, like, the more money we get in Patreon, the more we decide, like, the more we're motivated to make more content for y'all. Not that we don't want to, not that we don't have passion for this, but, it's hard to find time to make content. And the more we can get incentivized to do that, the more we can make that time to make more content for y'all.
Yeah, again, so just let us know. If you want to, if you want, like, if you want us to do more incentive, you could also subscribe, maybe, or like the video.
That too, yeah. We're close to 500 subscribers. It'd be cool to hit that.
Yeah. All right. Next time on the EWB, it's gonna be a Vindy video followed by a WattheWut video and then a Craftsdwarf video. All right.
Well, I was gonna say, if you want to just hear more of us talk, but talk less about other people's content, and more about what we talk about in our own content, you can subscribe to WattheWut, although you probably already are. You can subscribe to Vindy, which you probably aren't. So that's that. Thank you guys for watching.
See ya.